Chapter 1008. Gunyenji's IP address was heavily disguised, and the tone of her voice was that of the original blogger. No matter who saw that message, they would think it was a helper the original blogger had found. When Kai Songyin saw the message and listened to the recording, she was so angry she felt like she was about to explode. She threw the phone away and flew into a rage. She was like a balloon that was about to explode. Shameless. Despicable. Despicable. Treacherous person. How dare she use my daughter to threaten me? Kai Songyin's entire body was shaking, and all the blood in her heart rushed to her brain. Her face was terrifyingly red. Tan Guirin pushed the door open and was shocked to see Kai Songyin like this. She called out dumbly, "Mommy? What's wrong?" Kai Songyin's face twitched a few times as she tried to calm herself down. She put on the kindest smile. Although it was stiff, it was much better than the ferocious expression from before. She held Tan Guirin's hand with pity. "Little darling, did I scare you? Mommy, what's wrong? Who were you talking to just now?" Tan Guirin glanced at the ground and saw the broken phone Kai Songyin had thrown. "Did someone make you angry?" Kai Songyin couldn't think of any other excuse at that moment. She only remembered Gunyenji saying she would sue her and Tan Dongbang on TV that morning, so she blurted out, "Yes, it was that Gunyenji. She said she would sue me and your father. How dare she?" Tan Guirin remembered Kai Songyin telling her not to worry in the morning, but now she was so angry. She was even more certain of her judgment. That was, Gunyenji wanting to sue them had indeed caused her parents a lot of trouble. Therefore, she felt she had made the right decision to beg Gunyenji today. She helped Kai Songyin sit down on the single-seater sofa in the corner of the room. Tan Guirin poured Kai Songyin a glass of water and watched her drink it. "My little darling is such a good girl. She knows how to take care of mommy." Kai Songyin only drank a glass of water, but she felt it was sweeter than honey. She patted Tan Guirin's head and had her sit on the sofa with her. Tan Guirin leaned her head on Kai Songyin's shoulder and smiled. "Mommy, don't worry. Miss Gu isn't a person who doesn't know right from wrong. She said she would sue, but maybe it was just words out of anger? Think about it, she must be angry that she was hit. But when she thinks it through, she will know that this matter has nothing to do with mommy and daddy, so she won't sue you. If only that was the case." Kai Songyin smiled bitterly as she patted Tan Guirin's hand. She knew that she had raised her daughter to be ignorant of the ways of the world, so she didn't blame her. Tan Guirin turned around to look at Kai Songyin with a face full of joy. She giggled and said, "Mommy, you don't have to be afraid. When I was kidnapped in the United States, you and Daddy were so resourceful that you found people to rescue me. What's a small matter like this?" Kai Songyin had just been reminded that Tan Guirin had been kidnapped in the United States, so she hadn't expected Tan Guirin to mention it herself. Her expression changed as she grabbed Tan Guirin's hand. "Little darling, have you told anyone about what happened in the United States? Are there any?" Tan Guirin's eyes flashed. "I think so, but maybe not. I don't remember." Tan Guirin was a little flustered when she saw Kai Songyin's sparkling eyes looking at her. She instinctively didn't want Kai Songyin to know that she had gone to see Gunyenji today. This was because Gunyenji had said that if her parents found out, she would continue to sue them. In a panic, Tan Guirin used her ever-victorious coquettish skills to push Kai Songyin's shoulder. "Mommy, don't ask about that anymore, okay? I feel terrible every time I think about it." As she spoke, her eyes turned red. Kai Songyin had originally thought that if Tan Guirin remembered who she had said that to, she might be able to find the person who had threatened her. However, when she heard Tan Guirin's coquettish behavior and how she felt terrible every time she thought about it, she immediately decided not to show the recording to Tan Guirin. Because it would awaken those dirty memories, Kai Songyin didn't want her daughter to remember those days at all. It would be like suffering twice and suffering twice. It had to be said that Gunyenji had accurately guessed Kai Songyin's mental state. She had also guessed Tan Guirin's position in Kai Songyin's heart very well. Gunyenji was certain that Kai Songyin wouldn't dare to risk her daughter's future, and she was also certain that Tan Guirin wouldn't reveal their meeting today for now. That was why she dared to use both methods at once. Her goal was to force out the mastermind who had strongly recommended Hua Xiaoheng to Kai Songyin. Holding Tan Guirin in her arms, Kai Songyin continuously stroked her long hair and said tenderly, Okay, I won't ask any more. My little darling is the best." She kissed Tan Guirin's forehead and had already made up her mind. However, Tan Guirin was thinking about how to ask the questions Gunyenji wanted to know. She changed positions in Kai Songyin's arms and pretended to ask nonchalantly, "Mommy, you have so many friends. Can't you help Daddy? Won't Daddy be in danger during this interim election?" "I've already tried my best. Kai Songin's expression darkened. If Tan Dongbang hadn't cheated on Gu Yanran and been recorded, they wouldn't be in such a passive situation today. Kai Songin truly hated the adulterous couple, Tan Dongbang and Gu Yanran. Not only did they embarrass themselves, but they also lowered Tan Gairan's social status. Kai Songin regretted it the moment she thought about it. She really shouldn't have impulsively uploaded the video to the internet that time. She didn't expect there to be so many experts on the internet that they could actually restore the original video that she had blurred out. Mommy, when I was kidnapped in the United States, your friend was able to come up with a plan for you. Why can't she do it this time? Tan Guiran suddenly had an idea and volunteered. Mommy, which auntie is it? Tell me and I'll go find her and beg her for help. Kai Songin's heart skipped a beat as she thought about that person's identity. Although they couldn't help with the election, it shouldn't be a problem to find out who sent her the recording. Kai Songin didn't want anyone to use Tan Gairan's weakness to threaten her. She muttered to herself as her fingers casually ran through Tan Gairan's long hair. Smiling, she said, "Little darling, do you still remember Auntie Sun?" Which Auntie Sun? Tan Gairan shook her head. I don't remember this person. That's my fault. I should have let you interact more with everyone. Kai Songin pursed her lips. But it's not too late now. She stood up from the sofa and said to Tan Gairan, "Rest early? I'll take you to see a friend tomorrow." Tan Gairan stood up in surprise. Is it the friend who suggested Major General Hua to Mommy? I have to thank her properly. If it weren't for her, I definitely wouldn't have come back alive. Kai Songin nodded slightly with a smile. Little darling is so smart. It's her. What does Auntie Sun do? She's so amazing. Tan Gairan was also very excited. She didn't expect to find out who that person was so easily. She was also very grateful to Auntie Sunday. It was because of her that she had the opportunity to meet Hua Xiaoheng. If she could really be with Hua Xiaoheng in the future, then Auntie Sun would be their matchmaker. Tan Gairan's imagination ran wild, and a faint blush appeared on her face. Kai Songin adjusted her collar and patiently explained to her, Auntie Sun is your mommy's best friend. Her husband, Hong Kong, is the director of the Secret Service. He used to be your daddy's colleague and is now your daddy's subordinate. Back then it was Sun Yuerong who suggested Hua Xiaoheng to Kai Songin. Of course, she was actually passing on the words to her husband, Hong Kong, to Tan Dongbang and Kai Songin. Since the director of the Secret Service, Hong Kong, said Hua Xiaoheng was amazing and could save Tan Gairan, Kai Songin naturally believed him. At the time she had no idea who Hua Xiaoheng was, nor did she know how amazing he was. The wife of the director of the Secret Service. Tan Gairan exclaimed quietly. Mommy, all your friends are so amazing. It was the third watch. Today was the third watch and it was the last day of July. Everyone please cast your monthly votes. Today was also Monday. Recommendation votes, oh recommendation votes. P.S. Thank you to the reader, Sheep in the Deep Sea, for tipping me 10,000 Chinese yuan this morning. Chapter 1009. Kai Songin forced a smile at her daughter's shocked expression and patted her on the shoulder. Okay, go to sleep early. Mommy will take you to see Auntie Sun tomorrow. Tan Gairan nodded obediently and stood up. Mommy, you should sleep early too. You'll be able to sleep beautifully tomorrow. I know you're a good girl. Kai Songin kissed Tan Gairan's forehead and watched her leave. Kai Songin's smile finally crumbled after Tan Gairan's silhouette disappeared through the door. She rubbed her phone and hesitated for a long time before unlocking it and opening her contact list. She found Sun Yuerong's number and dialed it. When her phone rang, Sun Yuerong had just finished applying a facial mask at her vanity. She looked at the display on her phone and saw that it was Kai Songin calling. She hesitated for a while and didn't answer. Soon Kai Songin's call went to voicemail. Sun Yuerong quickly finished applying her facial mask and went to the study. She told her husband, Hong Kong, who was still working overtime, Old Hong, Kai Songin just called me. Hong Kong, who was wearing glasses, looked up from his computer and asked expressionlessly, It's so late. Why did she call me? Calls in the middle of the night were usually either good news or bad news. There was no middle ground. I didn't answer, Sun Yuerong said carefully. Will I cause you trouble? Hong Kong took off his glasses and stepped on the lenses with a cloth. He didn't speak for a long time. Sun Yuerong sat down and said worriedly, I really didn't expect that they would still make such a fuss after being elected prime minister. I'm best friends with Songin. I can ignore her call tonight, but I can't ignore her call tomorrow. Hong Kong put on his glasses and looked back at the computer. After a while he said, Kai Songyin is your best friend. Many people know that, so just do what you should do. It's not good to deliberately alienate her. If people see it, they'll say you're too snobbish. Oh, then I'll call her back tomorrow. Sun Yuerong immediately nodded but then asked. It won't affect you in any way, right? How would your business affect me? Hong Kongquan didn't care. Kai Songyin isn't an idiot. She wouldn't go overboard. But Sun Yuerong hesitated and said uneasily, Prime Minister Tan's public image has been terrible recently. He hasn't reflected on himself properly and has sent people to the Senate to cause trouble. He's offending both the Senate and the dollar. Old Hong, is it really okay for us to continue to maintain a close relationship with them? Hong Kongquan's heart warmed when he saw that his wife was being considerate of him. He looked up at her worried face and his attitude softened a lot. It's okay. The more you treated Kai Songyin the same way as before, the more people would look up to you. Think about it, these higher-ups aren't fools. Everyone had their ups and downs. Adding icing on the cake wasn't surprising, but providing timely help was something that would be remembered in one's heart. Not only is Kai Songyin grateful for what you're doing right now, but everyone else is also seeing it. Only then did Sun Yuerong feel relieved. She smiled and said, Old Hong, you have good foresight and magnanimity. After a pause, she whispered, Actually, you're the one who deserves to be the head of the Special Operations Forces. You're only the director of the Secret Service because we don't have any backing. Xiaoheng isn't even 30 years old yet. What right does he have to be the head of the Special Operations Forces and the Deputy Secretary General of the Standing Committee of the Military Supreme Council? Hong Kongquan's expression darkened instantly and he shouted, What do you know? Ignorant woman, no one will think you're mute if you don't speak. Get out of here. He grabbed a thick Oxford dictionary from the desk and threw it at Sun Yuerong. Sun Yuerong screamed from the impact and jumped up from the sofa. She said angrily, Old Hong, why are you hitting me? Why aren't you getting out? Do you want to eat my belt? As Hong Kongquan spoke, he took the belt off the back of his chair and shook it at Sun Yuerong. Sun Yuerong screamed and ran out in a hurry. After closing the door to Hong Kongquan's study, Sun Yuerong patted her chest and swallowed her anger. Hong Kongquan was a retired soldier. When she married him, he wasn't like this. Now, as the status of the Special Operations Forces in the country increased, not only did they surpass the Cabinet Secret Service in foreign countries, but they were also able to intervene in domestic affairs. Hong Kongquan's temper was getting worse and worse. Especially with the national surveillance of the interim general election this time, General Ji and Speaker Long had both chosen Xiaoheng's Special Operations Forces instead of the more legitimate Secret Service. Hong Kongquan had been fuming for a long time now. You only know how to be rude to me. You still have to pretend when you go out. Sun Yuerong pouted in disdain and returned to her room. After the door to the study was closed, Hong Kongquan threw away the belt in his hand and looked at the ceiling with a long sigh. He had never expected that the Special Operations Forces, which he had looked down on in the past, would have such a large scale and sphere of influence today. 10 years ago, General Ji had originally wanted Hong Kongquan to lead a new department in the military, which was the Special Operations Forces. This department had been developed from the previous 2nd Division of the military. It had continued the 2nd Division's manpower and functions, but had its own unique direction of development. At that time he felt that the department had no future, and with the Secret Service in foreign countries, he would only be cannon fodder for others if he went out. Therefore he used his wife's poor health as an excuse to resign from the military. After being discharged from the military, he naturally landed in the Secret Service and became a senior official. 7 years ago he became the head of the Secret Service. After he left, General Ji had no one else to use in the military intelligence department, which gave Xiaoheng the opportunity to make a name for himself. In the past 10 years, Xiaoheng had been entrusted with the task in the face of danger and expanded the Special Operations Forces from a small base to a point where the entire Wuxia Empire couldn't be ignored. It was said that one division was equivalent to an entire military region, and it was famous among the upper echelons of the empire. Hong Kongquan would never admit that he regretted it so much that his intestines turned green. He only knew that there could only be one special organization like this in the Wuxia Empire, and that was their long-established Secret Service. Not a Special Operations Forces with little to no history. After spacing out in his seat for a while, Hong Kongquan took out his personal phone and hesitated for a long time before dialing a number that he had memorized by heart. If anyone saw this number, they would definitely be surprised that this kind of number could be called. This was because this number was completely different from the standard phone number format of the Blue Planet. It rang many times but no one picked up. Hong Kongquan wasn't surprised, but he was still slightly disappointed. Tan Guirin returned to her bedroom and paced around the room excitedly before dialing Gu Nianji's number. Unexpectedly, Gu Nianji didn't pick up. Tan Guirin didn't give up and called a few more times, but it was all voicemail. Tan Guirin believed that it was inconvenient for Gu Nianji to pick up the phone, so she sent her a text instead. Miss Gu, the person who recommended Major General Hua to my mom was Sun Yuerong, the wife of the director of the Secret Service. I've done everything you asked of me. Shouldn't you drop the charges? Gu Nianji intentionally didn't pick up Tan Guirin's call. She didn't want to be monitored. Unexpectedly, Tan Guirin texted again. Gu Nianji glanced at it and froze. The wife of the director of the Secret Service was the person who made the recommendation? Didn't that mean the person behind it was the director of the Secret Service? Because of Bai Yuxing, Gu Nianji didn't have a good impression of the Secret Service. Bai Yuxing used to be the deputy director of the Secret Service, and the Secret Service also had Deputy Director Feng, who was the one who introduced Gu Yanran to Hua Xiaoheng. It seemed like she really didn't get along with the Secret Service. Gu Nianji thought about it for a while and still decided to call Hua Xiaoheng. At this time, Hua Xiaoheng was still monitoring the election in the Senate building. This time, he didn't use the central control room of the Special Operations Forces headquarters. Instead, he set up a monitoring center in the Senate building, with Speaker Long as the leader and Yin Shixiang as the deputy. Hua Xiaoheng was only a consultant to monitor from the side. Because the election was too tight, and the monitoring needed to cover all the constituencies in the country, the Special Operations Forces cooperated with the Secret Service to temporarily borrow personnel from the Secret Service in each province to establish a connection. This involved the cooperation of two departments, and Yin Shixiang couldn't control the situation alone. Therefore, Hua Xiaoheng needed to be there to hold the fort until all the monitoring was completed before the election. There was less than a week until the election, so Hua Xiaoheng and the others worked 24 hours a day. When Gu Nianji called, Hua Xiaoheng had just come out of the monitoring room. Hearing that it was Gu Nianji's personal ringtone, Hua Xiaoheng was slightly surprised. This was because Gu Nianji hadn't taken the initiative to call him this late in a long time. This was the first watch. It was already August. Dear friends, hurry up and cast your monthly votes. There are more monthly votes today, so I can consider the fourth watch. It was Army Day. At 1:00 p.m., the monthly votes for July were 6,000 plus updates. At 7:00 p.m., the third watch. If there was a fourth watch, please pay attention to the end of the third watch. P.S. Thank you to Momo Moshi and Sing_Sing for the 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Chapter 10:10. Hua Xiaoheng answered the call and walked to the smoking area of the Senate building with his Bluetooth headset on. He took out a cigarette and lit it. After taking a long drag, he asked calmly, "It's so late. You're still awake?" He raised his hand to look at his watch. It was almost midnight. Gu Nianji could hear the sound of Hua Xiaoheng inhaling and exhaling. It was exceptionally clear in the quiet night. She could even imagine him smoking. His tall figure was reflected on the wall, his long legs crossed leisurely in front of him. He held a cigarette in one hand, and his side profile was like a beautiful phone screensaver, so beautiful that it made people want to lick the screen. Hua Xiaoheng waited for a long time but didn't hear Gu Nianji say anything. He didn't rush her and just quietly leaned against the wall to smoke. White smoke drifted from his slender fingers and fell into the night sky outside the window. Gu Nianji blanked out and coughed lightly. "Hua Xiao? Is it convenient for you to talk now?" Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Yes, I'm free. Go ahead." Gu Nianji listened to Hua Xiaoheng's voice, which was even deeper than usual and a little hoarse. It was like the sound of a guqin's bass string being carelessly stroked by someone's hand. The lingering sound was faint, but it made her heart flutter. She rubbed her earlobe and tried her best to say calmly, "Hua Xiao, do you know who suggested that Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin ask you to personally go to the United States to save Tan Guirin?" Hua Xiaoheng switched his legs and frowned. "Nianji, what are you talking about? The last time he went to the United States to rescue Tan Guirin, it was still technically his mission. It was recorded by the Special Operations Forces, so it wasn't something Gu Nianji could know about. Or even if she knew, she couldn't say it out loud. Gu Nianji also understood this, so she didn't say anything else. She only said lightly, "Yeah, regardless of whether you admit it or not, I just want to tell you that the person who suggested to Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin that you go to the United States personally to rescue them was Sun Yuerong. She's the wife of the Director of Secret Service. Perhaps you already knew, but this is as far as I can help you." Gu Nianji hung up the phone. "Alright, everything is fine now. She thought she might as well write that part down. She had created such a huge obstacle for her and Hua Xiaoheng, yet she still wanted to hide in the shadows and watch the show. She was really dreaming. Gu Nianji tossed her phone to the side and turned off the lights. She went to sleep, leaving only the night light on. Gu Nianji didn't know how long she had slept, but she suddenly felt a chill. Subconsciously, she wanted to wrap herself tightly in the blanket, but it was as if someone was holding onto the blanket. She couldn't pull it away no matter how hard she tried. She grunted in annoyance and kicked her leg on the bed to show her anger. Then he heard two low and deep laughs that made his heart jump out of his chest. Gu Nianji immediately sobered up. When she opened her eyes, she saw that Hua Xiaoheng was wearing the same black cotton military t-shirt that she was wearing. He lifted the blankets and lay down beside her. Gu Nianji quickly moved back and said unhappily, "Can you not treat this as your own home? This is my house." Hua Xiaoheng looked at her and reached out to pull her into his arms. He changed into a more comfortable position and said calmly, "What happened tonight? How did you know it was Sun Yuerong who suggested it to Kai Songyin?" He had investigated for a long time after returning from the United States, but he hadn't found any concrete evidence. However, he knew that the person who suggested it to Kai Songyin was probably Kai Songyin's good friend. He also knew that Sun Yuerong was Kai Songyin's best friend, but Kai Songyin didn't just have one best friend. Her best friends were almost all the high-ranking wives in the imperial capital. Even after investigating them one by one, he still had no leads. He finally understood that this kind of thing was probably just a casual conversation between the two of them. As long as neither of them mentioned it, it would be very difficult for others to know who suggested it. Hua Xiaoheng also had a lot of other work and more important things to do, so he temporarily put this matter aside and only focused on monitoring the office building of the Prime Minister's official residence. In theory, the Prime Minister's family couldn't install surveillance in the small building that they lived in. That would be an invasion of personal privacy. He hadn't expected Gu Nianji to tell him tonight that the person was Sun Yuerong, the wife of the Director of Secret Service. Of course, Hua Xiaoheng was familiar with the Director of Secret Service, Hong Kongquan. He was a member of the Hong family and was also his childhood friend Hong Ziqi's uncle. He used to be Hua Xiaoheng's superior in the army, but after being discharged, he entered the Secret Service and started as a high-ranking official. Not long after, he became the Director of the Secret Service. If it was this person, then there was a big problem. Therefore, he immediately rushed over to find Gu Nianji and ask her for clarification. Gu Nianji also calmed down when Hua Xiaoheng asked her. She composed herself and pushed Hua Xiaoheng away. "Let's sit up and talk." Hua Xiaoheng wanted to hug her again but found that her rejection was firm and forceful. She wasn't playing coquettishly with him. Hua Xiaoheng let go of her. He felt that Gu Nianji's attitude was a bit different tonight. He sat up quietly and brought a pillow for Gu Nianji to put on the bed. "Come here." Gu Nianji leaned against the pillow and wrapped herself in the blanket to put some distance between her and Hua Xiaoheng. "Can you tell me now?" Hua Xiaoheng propped his head up with his hand and leaned sideways against the headboard. He looked at Gu Nianji intently. "Where did you get this information from?" Gu Nianji looked down and thought about it. She pointed to her phone on the bedside table. "Give me the phone." Hua Xiaoheng took it and handed it to her. Gu Nianji swiped open the phone and showed Hua Xiaoheng the text Tang Guiren had sent. "I found out from here." Hua Xiaoheng looked at the name of the sender and looked up at Gu Nianji speechlessly. "You believe what this person says?" Gu Nianji nodded. "I believe what she says. Because Tan Guiren wasn't a particularly active person, her words were very trustworthy. She wasn't very good at lying and didn't pay much attention to what she said. If she wasn't careful, she would offend people." Hua Xiaoheng wiped his face and suddenly felt that he shouldn't have come back to ask her this question so openly. He had spent so much effort but still couldn't find out who had given Kai Songyin the advice. Also, it was obvious that Kai Songyin had protected this source very closely. How could Tang Guiren find out so easily? Gu Nianji looked up and said dryly, "Why can't she find out? Tan Guiren is so important that Hua Xiao personally went to the United States to save her and risked his life for her. It's obvious how much Kai Songyin values this daughter. Also, it had been so long since the incident happened. Kai Songyin's guard had already dropped a lot when she asked about it now. Or perhaps Kai Songyin was now facing something even more difficult, so the incident with Tan Guiren was no longer a big deal in her heart. It would be easier to get information out of her. The timing that Gu Nianji had chosen was very favorable, but Kai Songyin's defenseless daughter, Tan Guiren, was able to get information out of her. Hua Xiaoheng froze. Going to the United States to save Tan Guiren was part of his mission, But how could Gu Nianji insist that he had gone to save Tang Guiran and even know that he had risked his life? Also, Hua Xiaoheng narrowed his eyes and immediately grasped the key point. Why would Tang Guiran help you get information from her mother? It was the second update, and the monthly tickets for July had arrived with 6,000 plus updates. It was already August. Dear friends, hurry up and vote. There are more monthly tickets today, so I can consider the fourth update. It was Army Day after all. At 7 o'clock p.m., the third update. If there was a fourth update, please pay attention to the end of the third update. Chapter 10-11. Why would Tang Guiran help me get information from her mother? Maybe she saw that I'm a good person and wanted to help me? Gu Nianji smiled mischievously and looked away. Her pretty lips pouted slightly. Hua Xiaoheng saw that she was full of conflict, so he didn't ask her again and analyzed it himself. You told the media this morning that you were going to sue that spokesperson Chao, as well as Prime Minister Tan and Kai Songyin. They're all co-defendants. Hua Xiaoheng mused. Is it because you're going to sue Prime Minister Tan and Kai Songyin that Tang Guiran was so scared that she came to beg you to be merciful? Gu Nianji suddenly turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng. Under the dim light, her eyes were like black jade glass and almost glowed. But it wasn't the light of joy or excitement. It was the light of anger, the light of fire. Hua Xiaoheng leaned back without batting an eyelid. Is that really the case? You really know Tang Guiran? Gu Nianji laughed coldly. It looks like you were willing to go to the United States to save her. She originally thought that there was a 50% chance that Hua Xiaoheng had another reason for going to the United States to save Tang Guiran. But when she heard him analyze Tang Guiran's mental state and behavior in such a logical manner, she immediately felt like an idiot. Turning her head in anger, she hugged her knees and wrapped the blanket tighter around her like it was her armor to help her resist Hua Xiaoheng's attacks. If the mastermind wanted to use this opportunity to drive a wedge between her and Hua Xiaoheng, Gu Nianji felt that person had already succeeded. Because there was no one else in the world that could truly hurt Gu Nianji except for Hua Xiaoheng. The mastermind really knew her too well. Gu Nianji felt her heart ache when she thought about it. At this time, what she wanted most was to have her own family, her own parents, and to be able to throw herself into their arms and cry about her grievances. She even secretly envied Tang Guiran. Although she wasn't smart, reliable, and didn't understand the ways of the world, she had parents who loved her the most. So what if she was smart and capable? She could only rely on herself to survive being hunted. Hua Xiaoheng understood Gu Nianji's heart knot and discovered that it hadn't been untied. Instead, it had deepened. After some thought, Hua Xiaoheng said, Did Tang Guiran tell you about the United States? Gu Nianji, she pursed her lips and felt even worse. How much did he know Tang Guiran to be able to make such a godly deduction as if he was there and saw it with his own eyes? Gu Nianji hugged her knees as she sat under the blankets. She held the powder blue duvet in front of her like a weapon. Hua Xiaoheng stared at Gu Nianji's frail back in a daze. He reached out and gently placed his hand on Gu Nianji's back, which was slightly protruding from leaning forward. His warm breath seeped into her heart through the thin black t-shirt. Nianji. Hua Xiaoheng's eyes darkened slightly. He exerted a bit of force and pulled her over to lean against his chest. He hugged her from behind through the blankets and patiently explained to her, What are you thinking about? I was able to predict her behavior patterns because that's what I do. It's not just Tang Guiran. I remember many people's words and actions as long as I've interacted with them. That way they would be able to adapt to the situation. Gu Nianji's body didn't move at all. She looked indifferent, but the tip of her delicate, white and moist ear twitched. Hua Xiaoheng happened to look down and see the restless tip of her ear. It was so soft as if it didn't have any bones. It was white and creamy like top-grade condensed milk. He knew it would be sweet and fragrant even before it entered his mouth. Hua Xiaoheng didn't like sweets, but he liked to eat her. She alone was worth all the sweets in the world. Hua Xiaoheng thought about that and really did suck on the tip of Gu Nianji's slightly twitching ear. Gu Nianji's entire body trembled. She felt very uncomfortable being sucked on by him, but she didn't dare to move. She mumbled, Really? You're questioning my professional ability? Hua Xiaoheng sucked hard on the tip of Gu Nianji's ear. It really tasted like honey tofu. Of course, it was more like condensed milk that melted in his mouth. I'm not questioning your professional ability. Gu Nianji turned around and vented her grievances. But why did you go to the United States to save her? There are so many people in the Special Operations Forces. Why did it have to be you? You're a Major General. You're the Chief of the Special Operations Forces. What did Tang Guiran do to need you to personally save her? Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji and raised his brows slightly. He said calmly, "The situation at the time was a bit complicated. Also, I had my own selfish motives." "See, I knew it. And you said you didn't have any feelings for Tang Guirin? You're even showing your selfishness now." Gu Nianji got the answer from Hua Xiaoheng. She was furious. She felt that she had given her true feelings to the wrong person. This person still had the cheek to force her to marry him. She was about to say the word divorce, when Hua Xiaoheng had already blocked her mouth with a kiss. He kissed her lips and mumbled, "I did it for your background check. I used your background check and marriage report to exchange with them." So after the incident he couldn't pursue it openly and could only investigate it privately. Gu Nianji froze. This wasn't the answer she had imagined. "What did you say? For my background check? What happened to my background check?" Gu Nianji's heart pounded. Was there something wrong? This returned to Gu Nianji's background again. The Gu Xiangwen, in a vegetative state on the hospital bed, wasn't her biological father. Her background was still unknown. For someone like that to marry someone in Hua Xiaoheng's position, they had to be extremely lucky. Like him, he had coincidentally found a loophole by chance. Of course, he knew now that he really couldn't be considered lucky. Although the background check passed and the marriage report was approved, her heart had left him. If he hadn't had selfish motives at the time, perhaps everything would be different now? But if he hadn't had selfish motives at the time, she wouldn't have married him. So after thinking about it carefully, it was still better to have selfish motives. Hua Xiaoheng carried Gu Nianji, who was no longer struggling, back to the blanket. He thought about it and decided to tell her the truth. Because your background is still unknown. And under normal circumstances, the military would never allow me to marry a woman with an unknown background. Hua Xiaoheng looked at Gu Nianji and kissed her big round eyes. "Then why didn't you say it before?" Gu Nianji looked at him suspiciously. "You didn't suddenly think of an excuse, did you? After all, you're so good at guessing other people's behavior patterns. You must have guessed mine too, right?" "If I could guess your behavior patterns, I would have guessed it a long time ago. Would I have waited until now?" Hua Xiaoheng looked down at her. "Also, what did Tang Guirin tell you?" "Why should I tell you? Guess it yourself." Gu Nianji's mood finally improved. She turned around and covered her mouth to yawn. She wanted to sleep. "Not telling?" Hua Xiaoheng let go of her and lay back on his pillow. He muttered to himself, "I was going to sue her for leaking classified information, but it's fine if you don't cooperate." Gu Nianji. It was the third watch. It was already August. "My friends, hurry up and vote. There were quite a lot of votes today. I can consider the fourth watch. It was Army Day, the fourth watch should be around 10 at night." Chapter 10-12. Gu Nianji turned around and looked at Hua Xiaoheng with sparkling eyes. "You really plan on suing Tang Guirin for leaking information? But she's so delicate. Do you really have the heart to send her to jail? She made a mistake and she deserves it." Hua Xiaoheng didn't care. "I didn't send her to jail. She did it herself." Although Tang Guirin's case could be big or small, Hua Xiaoheng didn't mind making it bigger as long as Gu Nianji could get revenge. Gu Nianji actually only wanted Hua Xiaoheng's clear attitude. Gu Nianji was already very satisfied that he could express his attitude like this. She smiled widely and jumped into Hua Xiaoheng's arms. Hugging his neck, she kissed him and said, "I didn't expect you to be so ruthless." "I'll take that as a compliment." Hua Xiaoheng sighed in relief. He had finally coaxed his little grandaunt back. He was also glad that he followed his heart and rushed back in time. Misunderstandings between lovers couldn't be dragged on for too long. Once it fermented overnight, it would become a big deal. Gu Nianji's mood improved, so she told Hua Xiaoheng everything that happened that day. She even talked about how she had tried to trick Tang Guirin into telling her and how she had recorded her account of being kidnapped in New York. "Then I sent it to Kai Songyin using a sock puppet account and warned her not to sue the original blogger. If she did, I would spread her daughter's captivity play with its own sound effects." Hua Xiaoheng knew that Gu Nianji did this so Kai Songyin wouldn't have any chance to pick out the short story. The original blogger who helped the evildoer also became a byproduct. He thought about it and realized that although Gu Nianji's method was crude, it had a miraculous effect. Because it made up for a mistake in Hua Xiaoheng's thinking about Kai Songyin's motherly love for Tang Guirin. Hua Xiaoheng never knew Kai Songyin could do this for Tang Guirin. He patted Gu Nianji's back and thought about his lack of understanding of motherly love. There was indeed a reason. However, Gu Nianji didn't have her mother in her memories. Why was she so sure of Kai Songyin's motherly love? Have you ever thought about what if Kai Songyin sacrificed Tang Guiran? Huo Xiaoheng reminded Gu Nianji quietly. That's a possibility. You're taking too much risk. When politics reached the highest level, personal feelings were not worth mentioning. If Kai Songyin hadn't loved Tang Guiran so much, she would never have let go of this opportunity. She would have found out who was behind this, and Gu Nianji wouldn't have been able to hide it anymore. Although Huo Xiaoheng wasn't afraid of making it public, he hoped that it wouldn't affect Gu Nianji as much as possible. However, Gu Nianji yawned. She was really sleepy now. She muttered, I don't think so. Tang Guiran grew up to be like this because her parents spoiled her so much. It's easy to guess her parents' behavior patterns. This was what it meant to reap what you sow. With the clues provided by Gu Nianji, Huo Xiaoheng's interrupted investigation could continue. He took out his phone and sent out 2 commands. Since the person who came up with the idea had been identified, the next step was to monitor the suspect. Huo Xiaoheng held Gu Nianji in his arms as they lay on the bed. He could hear her deep breathing. She had already fallen asleep. However, he didn't feel sleepy at all. He thought to himself, if it really was the director of the Secret Service, Hong Kongquan's idea, then what was his motive? Huo Xiaoheng couldn't imagine that Hong Kongquan was a traitor like Bai Yuxing. If it was true, then the consequences would be too severe, even more severe than Bai Yuxing's. He tossed and turned, unable to fall asleep. Finally, he lifted the covers and got up to drive to General Ji that very night. Although Hong Kongquan had retired from the military, he was still General Ji's direct subordinate. He had to clarify things with General Ji and find out General Ji's attitude. It was already 2 o'clock in the morning when he arrived at General Ji's home. General Ji frowned as he looked at Huo Xiaoheng in the study. It's so late. You better have something urgent. Huo Xiaoheng nodded and replied calmly, You can decide for yourself if this is urgent or not. What is it? General Ji was affected by Huo Xiaoheng's imposing manner and slowly sat down. Speak. Do you remember when the military sent me to the United States to rescue Tang Guiran last year? General Ji's expression darkened. Of course I remember. I want to know who is behind this and wants to harm my people. It was because of that mission that Huo Xiaoheng had almost lost his life in New York. They concluded that someone had leaked the secret, but they couldn't find out who it was. Huo Xiaoheng sat down in front of General Ji. According to the information I just received, the Kai and Tan families specifically wanted me to go to New York to rescue Tang Guiran. It was Hong Kongquan's wife, Sun Yuerong, who suggested it to Kai Songyin. The suggestion wasn't actually a serious problem. It wouldn't have directly pointed to a leak if Kai Songyin and Sun Yuerong hadn't been hiding it. However, Huo Xiaoheng hadn't been able to find out anything before, so it was a little interesting. It was originally just a general suggestion. With Huo Xiaoheng's reputation in the military, Hong Kongquan, as his old superior, knew his abilities and abilities. Therefore, it was understandable for him to recommend him. It wouldn't make people think of anything else. Even if Huo Xiaoheng had met with danger in the United States, normal people wouldn't suspect the person who had recommended him without concrete evidence. The mistake was that they refused to admit that they had recommended him. That would be a bit of a cover-up. Therefore, the more Huo Xiaoheng thought about it from Gu Nianji, the more uneasy he became, so he came to see General Ji that very night. General Ji was also stunned for a moment before coming back to his senses. He asked in confusion, Who? Who suggested it to Kai Songyin? Sun Yuerong, one of Kai Songyin's best friends. She's also the wife of Hong Kongquan, the director of the Secret Service. Huo Xiaoheng repeated. It's her? Why didn't you find out before? General Ji was even more confused. What's there to hide? What do you think? Huo Xiaoheng asked calmly and didn't say anything else. Hong Kongquan was also General Ji's old subordinate. It could be said that before Hong Kongquan had retired from the military, General Ji's trust and expectations for him were no less than the trust he had for Huo Xiaoheng now. Huo Xiaoheng had to consider General Ji's attitude if he wanted to touch someone who had high hopes for him and was now a good friend of General Ji's. General Ji was silent for a while and his expression grew darker. He stood up and walked out from behind the desk with his hands behind his back. He paced around the study. How could this be? What is he trying to do? Of course he wants me dead, Huo Xiaoheng added silently in his heart. He didn't say it out loud. At a time like this, not speaking was the best choice. Silence spoke louder than words. General Ji was someone who had been through a lot. He quickly composed himself and said to Huo Xiaoheng sternly, If that's the case, then there's no other way. Write an application and request for Hong Kongquan to be under full surveillance. Full surveillance meant that Hong Kongquan's privacy would be gone. Not only would his office be under surveillance, but his home would also be under surveillance. This kind of surveillance would require the approval of the military, the Senate, and the head of the cabinet for people above the ministerial level. However, the cabinet was currently in chaos, and this matter was related to Prime Minister Tan Dongbang and his wife, Kai Song-in. General Ji had reason to believe that the two of them were related suspects and couldn't know the truth about the surveillance. Therefore, it was fine as long as General Ji and Speaker Long agreed. Yes, sir. Hua Xiaoheng stood up and saluted in a standard military salute. This must be done quickly. I don't want a second by Yuxing to appear, General Ji said coldly. His aged face was full of murderous intent. It was the fourth watch. It was already August. Everyone hurry up and vote. There were quite a lot of votes today. Send them in at the fourth watch. It was Army Day after all. Chapter 10:13. I'll go back and write the application now. I'll send it over tomorrow morning for you to sign. Hua Xiaoheng had already thought of how to write the application. General Ji couldn't wait any longer. He pointed at the desk and chair in the study. Write it here. I'll sign it as soon as you're done. Hua Xiaoheng didn't refuse. He took out his phone and began writing the document. Although General Ji had a computer at home, Hua Xiaoheng couldn't touch it unless General Ji gave him permission. And writing an application didn't necessarily require the use of a computer in an era where smartphones were common. General Ji didn't ask Hua Xiaoheng to use his computer because he thought Hua Xiaoheng would write it by hand. However, seeing that he was typing rather quickly on his phone, General Ji didn't say anything. He sat behind his desk, turned on his computer and began writing the memo. If there really was a problem with Hong Kongquan, then they had to be well prepared and couldn't be sloppy at all. General Ji hadn't finished writing the memo, but Hua Xiaoheng had already finished writing the application. He exported it from his phone to General Ji's printer and printed it out to General Ji. General Ji put on his reading glasses and picked up Hua Xiaoheng's application to read it carefully. He pointed at two places and said, "Change it here. Directly say that he is clearly related to the Special Operations Forces New York operation, so we need to apply for surveillance. And here, it also means that this incident is related to Prime Minister Tan and his wife, Kai Song-in, so we don't need to ask for Prime Minister Tan's permission." Hua Xiaoheng nodded and said humbly, "General Ji, you're really thoughtful." He then changed the two places again and printed out 3 copies for General Ji to sign. General Ji signed all 3 documents and asked Hua Xiaoheng to give them to Speaker Long to sign. After both of them signed, General Ji's copy would be stored in the Supreme Military Council, Speaker Long's copy would be kept in the Senate Secretariat, and Hua Xiaoheng would keep 1 copy at the Special Operations Forces headquarters. By the time General Ji finished signing the documents, it was already past 3 in the morning. Go, hurry and get Speaker Long's signature. General Ji couldn't wait any longer and urged Hua Xiaoheng to find Speaker Long. Hua Xiaoheng wasn't in a hurry. General Ji, there are too many people in the Senate. They can't compare to the military. I should get Speaker Long's signature when I go to the Senate tomorrow to check on the progress of the surveillance center. General Ji thought about it for a while and nodded. That makes sense. The Senate is indeed incomparable to the military. He then snorted disdainfully. I told old Long back then that the Senate needs to be managed properly. Should be managed properly, but he said the Senate was a place for everyone to speak their minds. He said the Senate was a place for people to speak their minds. That's why the Parliament has become the most chaotic of the 3 departments. It could be said that the Parliament members represented too many interest groups, and there were even foreign powers looking for agents among the Parliament members. As long as they obeyed the laws of the Wuxia Empire, this was not impossible. Long, Speaker. He longer than of at. Long to end and I, of. Long he of in, of the of out of the one. Longer than. Li of the end he. Long as. I long more. Tang. Yang of out. In. As long as there is something good about them, he will be able to use them. Of the 3 most important departments of the Wuxia Empire, the military won respect. The cabinet is based on order, and the Senate is praised for its tolerance. But it's difficult to keep anything secret in an organization like this. It's not that it can't be kept secret, but it's different from other places. Why did Speaker Long use tolerance to manage the Senate? It was because every member of the Senate was, to a certain extent, hostile to each other. If they want to gain benefits for their districts, they will have to take advantage of other districts. Hua Xiaoheng thought about the possibility of Gu Nianji working in such a department in the future and suddenly felt uncertain. Is it really a good opportunity to let her go to the Senate? After leaving General Ji's house, Hua Xiaoheng didn't go back to Gu Nianji's or the headquarters. He went directly to the Senate building. It was already past 4 in the morning when he arrived at the parking lot of the Senate building. It was the darkest time before dawn. Hua Xiaoheng got out of the car with the application documents in a brown paper envelope. He squinted at the parking lot, then walked to the elevator in the parking lot of the Senate building. It was still early, so there was no one else in the Senate building except for the temporary command room that monitored the election. However, the entire building was still brightly lit. Hua Xiaoheng walked into the temporary command room, and a few Special Operations Forces personnel who had been working overnight stood up and saluted him. "Good morning, Chief." Hua Xiaoheng raised his hand. "Have a seat. Are you resting?" They smiled. "There's still some work to do. We can sleep after we're done." Hua Xiaoheng looked around but didn't see Yin Shixiang. "Where's Big Xiong?" Colonel Yin went out to buy breakfast. A staff member rubbed his stomach in embarrassment. However, his stomach started growling again. Hua Xiaoheng smiled. "You guys go ahead. I'll go check the system." He walked to the small office inside and turned on the computer to test the connection speed of various places. At the same time, he checked the quality of the video synchronization. Once he got busy, time flew by quickly. Hua Xiaoheng wasn't even halfway through checking the surveillance of the voting areas in the country when it was already morning. Yin Shixiang came back with a sumptuous breakfast and was cheerfully inviting everyone to breakfast. "Big Xiong Hua Xiao is here. He's in the small office inside." The staff member outside quietly pointed to the inner room. Yin Shixiang quickly brought a box of beef porridge, a bag of beef buns and an egg to the small office inside. "Good morning, Hua Xiao. You can make do with this. The breakfast at the beef restaurant here is not bad. Of course, it's far worse than the chef in our official residence." Yin Shixiang smiled as he placed the food in front of Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng was indeed hungry, so he opened it and started eating. After breakfast, Hua Xiaoheng placed the brown paper envelope in Yin Shixiang's hands. "Send it to Speaker Long's office to sign. Tell them to hurry." Hua Xiaoheng used a normal brown paper envelope to contain the application documents because he didn't want people to think that the document was very special. At the same time, he wanted to take the opportunity to test whether there were any moles in the Senate. Yin Shixiang quickly took it. "I'll go right away." Yin Shixiang took the brown paper envelope to Speaker Long's office, but he didn't see Speaker Long. Only Special Assistant Yang and a few junior secretaries were there to organize the documents. Seeing Yin Shixiang walk in, Special Assistant Yang greeted him with a smile. "Colonel Yin, are you looking for Speaker Long?" "Yes, there is a document that needs Speaker Long's signature." Yin Shixiang showed him the envelope. "Where is Speaker Long?" "He went to a meeting." Special Assistant Yang gestured towards the conference room. "The interim election is only a few days away. Speaker Long is currently holding a video conference with the subordinate units of the Senate that are organizing the voting. He's checking on their preparations one by one. There are so many. Can you check all of them?" Yin Shixiang clicked his tongue. "Okay, I'll wait for a while." He sat outside Speaker Long's office, but he didn't sit for long before the surveillance room called him and asked him to go over to mediate the conflict with the local secret service. Yin Shixiang hesitated for a long time and asked for Hua Xiaoheng's permission before handing the envelope to Special Assistant Yang. "Special Assistant Yang, please help me pass this to Speaker Long. I'll come and collect it after I'm done." "No problem." Special Assistant Yang carefully checked the envelope and saw that it was tightly sealed before stamping the seal of the Senate in front of Yin Shixiang. That way, when Speaker Long received it, he could ensure that no one had opened the envelope. After Yin Shixiang left, Special Assistant Yang looked at the tightly sealed envelope with a smile. He called Gu Nianji over and said, "This is a document from the Special Operations Forces. It needs to be signed by Speaker Long." "Give it to Speaker Long." Gu Nianji refused to take it. However, Gu Nianji refused to take over. She was still wearing the mask and pointed at her face. "Special Assistant Yang, how can I find Speaker Long like this? You should find someone else." After she left, Special Assistant Yang sighed and muttered to himself, "Everyone is so busy, there's nothing I can do." As he spoke, he placed the document at the bottom of the pile and waited for Speaker Long to come back and sign it. At the same time, Kai Songyin was taking her daughter, Tan Guerin, out to meet one of her best friends, Sun Yuerong. They had agreed to meet at a 3-star Michelin restaurant. Kai Songyin and Tan Guirin arrived at the restaurant and saw that Sun Yuerong was already waiting there. Kai Songyin waved at her and said with a smile, "Yuerong, long time no see." "Long time no see." Sun Yuerong looked at Tan Guirin and nodded with a smile. "Little darling is getting prettier. She still has the temper of a child. I told her to learn from you so that when she gets married she can be like you and help her husband socialize." Kai Songyin took the menu with a smile and ordered a few of Tan Guirin's favorites. Sun Yuerong said with a smile, "Yes, little darling should be engaged soon, right? I remember that you guys are interested in Major General Hua. How is it? Did Major General Hua come to propose marriage?" Tan Guirin blushed and quickly said, "Auntie Sun, I have nothing to do with Major General Hua. Where did this marriage proposal come from? Please don't talk nonsense." Sun Yuerong snickered. "Little darling is so shy. Okay, Auntie Sun won't talk about it anymore." She changed the topic and started chatting with Kai Songyin. One moment they were talking about a new product launch by an international brand. The next moment, they were talking about a minor celebrity from a certain company that was going to star in a new show. Tan Guirin listened for a while and felt it was very boring. She sat in her seat and stared blankly at the woman playing the piano in the restaurant. Kai Songyin saw this and sent her away. "Little darling, there's a mall next to this restaurant. Go and see if the men's clothing there is new. I'm going to buy clothes for your daddy. Can you help mommy?" "Sure, no problem." Tan Guirin left excitedly and went to the mall alone. After Tan Guirin left, Kai Songyin's expression immediately darkened. She secretly slid a flash drive into Sun Yuerong's hand and lowered her head to eat her porridge as if nothing had happened. She whispered, "Give this to your husband and ask him to help. This is the first update. It's already August. Dear friends, hurry up and vote for me. And recommendation votes. There are a lot of monthly votes today, so I can still consider the fourth update. At 1 p.m., the monthly votes will be 600 plus updates. At 7 p.m. the third update. If there is a fourth update, please pay attention to the end of the third update. P.S. Thank you to Manlinger, Enigmaangxi, and Felix Mom for each tipping 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Thank you to Yes, I am Xian Xian for tipping 50,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Chapter 10:14. Sun Yuerong subconsciously gripped the flash drive tightly and threw it into her Chanel double C bag when no one was looking. The two of them chatted happily for a while before Sun Yuerong stood up and said, "It was a pleasure to meet with you today. When we have time in the future, our family should have a meal together." "Sure, I plan to host a fundraising ball in a few days. Please do come." Kai Songyin smiled and shook Sun Yuerong's hand. She whispered, "Please give this to your husband as soon as possible." Her expression was a bit anxious. Sun Yuerong was slightly taken aback. Their hands parted as soon as they touched. They could both feel the cold sweat on each other's palms. "I'm leaving now." Sun Yuerong forced a smile and hurried home. As soon as she got home, she went to the study to look for Hong Kongquan. However, Hong Kongquan had already left for work. Sun Yuerong sat in the study for a while, feeling very uneasy. Thinking about Kai Songyin's anxious expression, Sun Yuerong couldn't sit still. She brought the flash drive directly to the Secret Service office building to see Hong Kongquan. Hong Kongquan was also in a meeting. The Secret Service was assisting the Special Operations Forces in monitoring the interim election. Hong Kongquan's confidants were very unhappy that they were helping someone else. In their opinion, all the credit went to the Special Operations Forces, and all the hard work went to the Secret Service. It was really strenuous and unrewarding. The meeting of the Secret Service became a gathering of grievances. Hong Kongquan listened to everyone's complaints with a smile and kept comforting them. "You guys are thinking too much. We are all serving the people. Don't be so clear about it. Don't worry, I will ask Speaker Long and General Ji for the credit." Hong Kongquan laughed and stopped interrupting, which finally made his subordinates feel better. After the meeting ended, everyone went back to their duties. When Hong Kongquan returned to his office, he found out that his wife, Sun Yuerong, was already waiting for him in the guest room. "Let her in," Hong Kongquan said into the intercom. The guards outside brought Sun Yuerong in and considerately closed the door for them. "What are you doing here?" Hong Kongquan asked with a smile, but his eyes were cold. Sun Yuerong mumbled, "I just had breakfast with Mrs. Tan this morning." As soon as Sun Yuerong mentioned Kai Songyin, Hong Kongquan immediately stopped her. "I haven't had breakfast yet. Do you want to eat with me?" "All right." Sun Yuerong immediately agreed and left his office with Hong Kongquan. The two of them went to the dining room outside. Hong Kongquan reprimanded Sun Yuerong in a low voice. The Secret Service has surveillance. What's wrong with your brain? Talk to me over there. Sun Yuerong cowered and looked around. Song Yin was very worried. I had to go find you, but I didn't dare call. All right, what's up? Hong Kongquan's breakfast was very simple. There were only 2 eggs and a cup of coffee. Sun Yuerong stuffed the flash drive Kai Song-yin had given her into Hong Kongquan's hand. She gave this to me. She asked you to help her. You want my help? Do you know what time it is? Hong Kongquan was furious. You really don't have a brain. He was so angry that he couldn't even eat breakfast. He put down his knife and fork and got up to leave, leaving Sun Yuerong alone in the dining room. Sun Yuerong stayed for a while longer before paying the bill and leaving. Hong Kongquan returned to his car and thought about it with a dark expression. He took out the flash drive and plugged it into his laptop. This was his personal computer and was never connected to the internet, so it was relatively safe. Hong Kongquan originally didn't want to get involved with Kai Song-yin's matter, but his heart skipped a beat when he saw the contents of the flash drive. It looked like he really couldn't ignore it. In Kai Song-yin's flash drive, there was information on a Weibo blogger and a text that Kai Song-yin had written to him. She told him that someone might have found out about what happened to Tang Guirin in New York. She hoped that Hong Kongquan would use the power of the Secret Service to help her seal that person's mouth. At that moment, Kai Song-yin was no longer thinking about the incident between Gu Nianji and Hua Xiaoheng. Instead, she was thinking about her daughter's flawless reputation. She couldn't allow it to be tarnished. She didn't care much about Tan Dongbang's reputation, but her daughter, Tan Guirin, was her lifeblood. There couldn't be any mistakes. Hong Kongquan originally didn't want to get involved. That almost flawless New York plan had failed at the last moment. Hong Kongquan was so worried that he couldn't sleep for a few nights. He had already made up his mind to draw a clear line between himself and the Tans. He didn't want to get involved with them to avoid getting himself into trouble. However, Kai Song-yin took advantage of the situation and actually used this incident to threaten him. Kai Song-yin's intentions were very clear. If Hong Kongquan didn't help her settle this matter, she would expose him. After Hua Xiaoheng returned from New York, he had secretly investigated who had suggested to Kai Song-yin that he go to New York. Kai Song-yin pretended not to remember and said that everyone had recommended him. She thought that the law doesn't punish the masses, so she glossed over the matter. At that time, Hua Xiaoheng had no evidence, no target, and Kai Song-yin wasn't a suspect. Even if he had countless methods, he couldn't casually use them on his own people. Therefore, this matter had been dragged on. However, as long as Kai Song-yin wanted to, she could expose Hong Kongquan at any time. You want to threaten me? Hong Kongquan couldn't help but sneer. He picked up his personal phone and called Kai Song-yin. Mrs. Tan, your demands are too high. Your wife can't do it, Hong Kongquan said politely. Hong Kongquan said politely. He held the flash drive that Kai Song-yin had asked his wife to deliver to him in his hand, intending to destroy it. Kai Song-yin couldn't help but panic when she heard that Hong Kongquan actually wanted to reject her. Director Hong, how can you say that? I kept my mouth shut in front of the investigators for your sake. Now you want to burn the bridge after crossing it? You're the one burning the bridge after crossing it, aren't you? Hong Kongquan chuckled. Furthermore, why did you keep your mouth shut? I made the suggestion because I think Hua Xiao is the best candidate. What's wrong with that? Just say it. Hua Xiao is my soldier. I know better than you what he's capable of. He was about to hang up. Kai Song-yin could only feel cold sweat trickling down her back. Hong Kongquan was turning his back on her. Furthermore, what he said wasn't without reason. She might not be able to threaten him at all, but what would happen to her daughter if he walked out on her? In a moment of desperation, Kai Song-yin only wanted Hong Kongquan to send people to help her deal with the Weibo blogger who had dirt on Tan Guirin. She suddenly had an idea and said, "You really don't care?" Hua Xiao was ambushed when he went to New York to save little darling. Do you dare say that this has nothing to do with you? Hong Kongquan could say that he recommended Hua Xiaoheng because of his talent, but how could he explain the danger that Hua Xiaoheng encountered in New York? As long as the two were connected, Hong Kongquan would be in the same boat as her. Kai Song-yin actually didn't have direct evidence, but she had no other choice. If she didn't do this, Hong Kongquan wouldn't help her at all. What does what he encountered in New York have to do with me? Hong Kongquan was so angry that the veins on his forehead were popping. He couldn't reason with a woman. How would I know what it has to do with you? You can explain it to Hua Xiao yourself. I think he must have a way to find out the truth. Kai Song-yin finally let out a sigh of relief. She knew that she had something on Hong Kongquan. If he really had a clear conscience, he should have asked them to investigate. However, Hong Kongquan remained silent for a long time before saying, "Wait for my news." Kai Songyin felt her heart tighten at the same time she breathed a sigh of relief. Oh no, she seemed to have accidentally discovered something incredible. Did Hong Kongquan really have something to do with what happened to Hu Xiao in the United States? It was the second watch. It was already August. Dear friends, please hurry up and vote for me. There didn't seem to be many monthly votes left today. At 1 p.m., the monthly votes were 600 plus updates. At 7 p.m. the third watch. Was there a fourth watch? Read the comments after the third watch. Moi. Chapter 10:15. Now it was Kai Songyin's turn to draw a line with Hong Kongquan. After putting down the phone, Kai Songyin crossed her arms and paced back and forth in her study. What should she do? When Hu Xiaoheng had gotten into trouble in New York, Kai Songyin had heard a bit about it. She had thought that Hu Xiaoheng had been careless and had been caught by the American police. So it wasn't Hu Xiaoheng's problem. Someone was colluding with the Americans. Kai Songyin's back was instantly drenched in sweat. She couldn't imagine what would happen to her daughter if Hu Xiaoheng died in the United States like that. Hong Kongquan wanted her daughter to die with Hu Xiaoheng. How could he be so vicious? She had treated him as a good person and a friend. She had been blind. However, Tan Dongbang's position as prime minister was about to fall. Although they were still making their final efforts, the general trend was to follow. Tan Dongbang and Gu Yanran's video had ruined everyone's goodwill, so it was almost impossible for them to be elected. So the most important thing now was to clear the way for her daughter. No one else could know about what had happened in New York. No matter what Hong Kongquan did, Kai Songyin was confident that she would be able to cooperate with the director of the Secret Service more in the future. Hong Kongquan returned to the Secret Service office building and worked for a while as if nothing had happened. He signed a few documents before calling his trusted subordinate over. There's a person's information here. Go check and see who he has been in contact with recently. Also, check his computer and social media accounts to see if he has been in contact with anyone overseas. Hong Kongquan placed the Weibo blogger's information in front of his subordinate and emphasized, "Be quick. Don't delay." His subordinate often did this kind of work. He immediately took the information and began searching. Through the Secret Service's national network, they found all of the blogger's whereabouts in the past month, including the abnormal changes in his bank account. 3 hours later, the subordinate was already reporting the results of his search in Hong Kongquan's office. Director Hong, this person lives a simple life. He rents a house in the imperial capital and lives near the subway station exit in the 4th Ring Road. He doesn't usually go out and is known as a homebody. The subordinate laughed. However, we found that a few days ago, there were abnormal changes in his bank account. It's more suspicious. Our initial suspicion is that he was paid to post something. According to the information they had, it was the Prime Minister. However, Hong Kongquan knew that this Weibo blogger not only had information on Prime Minister Tan, but also his daughter, Tan Guiran. Perhaps it was even related to him. Hong Kongquan was very uneasy. He couldn't explain the reason, but he had a feeling that he was being watched. He was clearly the master of this kind of thing, but no matter what he did, he couldn't find out who was monitoring him. Perhaps he was just being paranoid. Hong Kongquan was very cautious when he did things, and he was also sure that the person who had helped him before was not someone they could track down with their current technology. His only mistake was that the enemy had cooperated with the CIA instead of attacking Hu Xiaoheng himself. If that person had acted personally, Hu Xiaoheng would have been dead a long time ago. As long as Hu Xiaoheng died, he would definitely be able to take over the Special Operations Forces and combine the Special Operations Forces and the Secret Service. He would become the most special person in the history of the Wuxia Empire, just like the director of the FBI, J. Edgar Hoover. This person was his life goal. J. Edgar Hoover had been the director of the FBI for 47 years. Under his leadership, the FBI was so powerful that even the president didn't dare to disrespect J. Edgar Hoover. He was so close to leaving his name in history. Hong Kongquan quietly listened to his subordinate's report, but his thoughts were far away. Until he heard his subordinate say, "This Weibo blogger is afraid of being sued by the Prime Minister's wife, so he's asking how to hire a lawyer to represent him in court." Hong Kongquan's heart skipped a beat. He nodded and asked, "How's his financial situation? Are his expenses high?" "He's quite thrifty, but he recently took out a few online loans and used his ID as collateral." The subordinate looked at his records. In total he has 500,000. Adding on the 300,000 that suddenly appeared in his bank, He has 800,000 in total. Hong Kong smiled. Anything else? Oh, he's been searching for flight tickets online. They're all to Southeast Asia. His subordinate finished his report and handed the information to Hong Kong. Hong Kong took it and looked at it. He praised his subordinate. You've done well. After his subordinate left, Hong Kong walked out of the Secret Service's office building and bought a pack of cigarettes from a store outside. He stood under a tree that had just sprouted buds and smoked as he used his Bluetooth headset to call someone. After the call, he looked at his watch. It was already 4 in the afternoon, so he could get off work. He returned to his office, packed his briefcase and returned home. In the temporary command room of the Senate building, Hua Xiaoheng asked Yin Shixiang, "Have the documents been signed?" Yin Shixiang shook his head. Senior Speaker Long is still in a meeting. I called him, and Special Assistant Yang said that Senior Speaker Long is still in the conference room. Hua Xiaoheng waved his hand. Alright, go do what you need to do. After Yin Shixiang left, Hua Xiaoheng issued a few orders for the members of the Special Operations Forces to pay special attention to Hong Kong. Yes, not to monitor but to pay special attention. This way they could avoid wrangling over procedural issues in the future. But since they couldn't monitor Hong Kong yet, there was a limit to what Hua Xiaoheng and the others could do. They could only rely on manpower to keep an eye on him. Electronic surveillance couldn't be activated for the time being. The personnel of the Special Operations Forces who were paying attention to Hong Kong reported to Hua Xiaoheng about Hong Kong's actions throughout the day. He went to work in the morning, then went to have breakfast with his wife. After he came back, he worked until he got off work at 4 and went home. End of report. Hua Xiaoheng didn't hear anything out of the ordinary, so he ordered, "Continue to pay attention." The personnel of the Special Operations Forces changed shifts at 8 in the evening. They sat in a black Jeep Cherokee and paid attention to the apartment building where Hong Kong lived. Just when they thought that the day would pass without any incident, Hong Kong appeared at the entrance of the building. He was dressed casually in a black down jacket that was bulging. He wore a baseball cap and sunglasses even though it was late at night. However, the personnel of the Special Operations Forces were all professionals, so they could tell that the sunglasses he was wearing were not ordinary sunglasses. They were probably special sunglasses with night vision and infrared capabilities. Where is he going? I don't know. Should we follow him? Yes. Hong Kong waited on the path in front of the building for a while until an online car arrived. He got into the car and calmly told the driver the address. The Jeep Cherokee behind him followed. Hong Kong sneered in his heart. Someone was indeed following him. If he had guessed correctly, his old subordinate, Hua Xiaoheng, was probably suspicious of him. It must have been Kai Songyin, the arrogant and noisy woman, who had leaked the information. The online car drove on the main road of the capital for a while before stopping in front of a gay bar. Hong Kong got out of the car, put his hands in the pockets of his down jacket and entered the bar. The personnel of the Special Operations Forces who were following him immediately followed. However, as soon as they entered, they were stopped by a few effeminate men. "You look so unfamiliar, handsome. Is this your first time here, handsome? This is a proper bar. Come, let me buy you a drink." The two personnel of the Special Operations Forces were also trained, so they didn't get impatient. The two of them giggled and drank 2 glasses of wine with these people. When they looked up, they saw Hong Kong in a black down jacket sitting in front of the bar and laughing with the bartender. When the personnel of the Special Operations Forces saw this, they couldn't help but look down on Hong Kong. There was nothing wrong with being gay, but it was too much to hide one's homosexuality and still get married and have children. They sat not far from the bar and stared at Hong Kong's back as he drank in front of the bar while playing a finger-guessing game. 5 minutes later, one of the personnel of the Special Operations Forces suddenly changed his expression and said to his colleague, "Why is he still wearing a down jacket? He should wear it outside because it was still very cold at night in the capital during early spring." However, it was as warm as spring in the bar, and both of them had taken off their jackets. Why was Hong Kong still wearing a down jacket? One of the personnel of the Special Operations Forces walked to the bar and ordered a drink. At the same time, he quickly glanced at Hong Kong, who was sitting not far from him. With one glance, his heart skipped a beat and he secretly cursed himself. He had been tricked. That person wasn't Hong Kong at all. He was only wearing Hong Kong's thick down jacket and drinking here. At this time, the real Hong Kong had already left the bar from the back door. He had called a new car and was heading in the direction of the subway. It was the 3rd watch. It was already August. Everyone hurry up and vote. The monthly votes seemed to be a little weak today, But it didn't matter. We could come again tomorrow and then we would have the fourth watch. Chapter 10:16. Late at night, the subway station in the fourth ring road of the imperial capital was still very busy. People from the south and north were getting on and off here, rushing to their respective destinations. Hong Kong wore a cap that was pulled down low and an old leather flight jacket as he hurriedly got off the subway. He walked through the crowd, carefully avoiding the surveillance cameras along the way. If he really couldn't avoid it, he would wait for the crowd to come over and squeeze into the crowd to walk together. It only took 5 minutes to walk from the subway station to the apartment that the Weibo blogger was renting, but it took Hong Kong 30 minutes to reach the Weibo blogger's house. The doorbell rang for a long time before the Weibo blogger opened the door with fluffy eyes and asked impatiently, "Who is it? Can't you let me sleep at night?" He hadn't slept well for several days. Today he had finally managed to get a flight ticket, and he planned to go abroad tomorrow to lie low. Only then could he rest in peace. In less than half an hour he was woken up by someone. "Are you Lu Daong?" Hong Kong looked up at the Weibo blogger and said his real name. Lu Daong didn't look young. He was in his early 30s. His hair was greasy, his face was big and he wasn't tall. His body was round, and it was obvious that he was a homebody who lacked exercise. His face was unnaturally pale. He held onto the door and looked at the tall man who was wearing sunglasses in the middle of the night. "Who are you? Why are you looking for me?" This man was really tall. Lu Daong felt that he was only as tall as this man's shoulder. Hong Kong nodded. "Can we talk inside? I have something to discuss with you. It's about your online loans." "Loan? What online lending? You're crazy." Lu Daong's expression suddenly changed. He took a step back and was about to close the door. "Don't tell me you don't want to pay your debts." Hong Kong raised his voice. He deliberately used a voice changer so that even those who recognized him wouldn't be able to recognize his voice. Of course, Lu Daong did not know if this was his real voice or a fake one. He was just very flustered because he really did have the idea of going abroad. What did you say? I don't understand." Lu Daong stammered, wanting to close the door even more. Hong Kong yelled, "You owe me money. Don't even think of going back on your word." His voice was so loud that it even startled some of the neighbors who were still awake. The doors opened one after another and many curious heads popped out. Lu Daong panicked and hurriedly pulled Hong Kong into the house, slammed the door shut and whispered, "What are you doing? You're so loud. Even if you're shameless, I'm not." "You still know how to be shameless?" Hong Kong sneered and leaned against the door. He looked at Lu Daong again and suddenly asked, "Are you the Weibo blogger, Churchill's Garden?" Lu Daong was at a loss. Isn't this an online credit card company asking for money back? How did this have anything to do with Weibo? Lu Daong became vigilant. "I don't understand what you're talking about. I think you've got the wrong person." "Wrong person?" Hong Kong took a step forward and extended his long arm. The gun in his hand was already flashing, and he pointed it at Lu Daong's head. "You're really something, aren't you? You even managed to get your hands on a video of the Prime Minister. Tell me who gave you the resources. Also, who told you that Prime Minister Tan's daughter was overseas?" Lu Daong instantly understood that this was someone on Prime Minister Tan's side, and he immediately knelt down. "I don't know. I really don't know. I was just getting paid to do my job. I don't know how it became a video either. I'm innocent. I'm innocent." Lu Daong yelled and suddenly slammed into Hong Kong while he wasn't paying attention, causing Hong Kong to stumble. Lu Daong took the opportunity to stand up, unlock the door and run out. Hong Kong laughed sinisterly. "Trying to run?" He rushed forward and quickly strangled Lu Daong's neck from behind. Hong Kong's strength was just right, just enough to knock Lu Daong out, but not enough to suffocate him to death. After placing the unconscious Lu Daong on the ground, Hong Kong put on plastic gloves and began to search Lu Daong's room. Lu Daong had rented a one-bedroom apartment on the 15th floor. It wasn't very big. With Hong Kong's professional ability to search, it only took him 10 minutes to determine that there wasn't anything he was looking for. As for Lu Daong's computer, Hong Kong used his own high-capacity flash drive to quickly make a copy of his computer's hard drive so that he could go back and search for clues. He turned around to look at Lu Daong, who was lying on the floor, and seemed to see him move slightly. Hong Kong decided to finish this quickly. He put the flash drive back in his pocket and dragged Lu Daong over. He opened the window and took out a special paper tape. He wrapped it around Lu Daong's chest and hung him under the windowsill. Then he made some fake fights in the room and messed up the living room. Finally, he lit a book and threw it on the floor near the window. After doing all this, Hong Kongquan quickly left Lu Dayong's room and went down the elevator. The surveillance cameras in the elevator had already been destroyed when he came up, so he wasn't worried that they would capture him. Even if they did, he didn't care because he was completely disguised. He had plastic bags tied to his shoes so that they wouldn't leave any footprints. His shoes were also specially made to increase his height. They were at least 7 or 8 centimeters taller than his actual height. In addition, he also pretended to be very strong, like a debt collector's thug. In fact, he was very skinny and his whole body was lean and muscular. After coming out of the elevator, Hong Kongquan looked back and saw that there was already a fire in Lu Dayong's bedroom window. The fire was lit. He calmly walked into the crowd of the night and got on the subway with the bustling crowd. Then he found a public restroom without surveillance cameras and took off his disguise. He hailed a taxi and went back home. A gust of night wind blew mixed with smoke and heat. Lu Dayong woke up in a daze. When he opened his eyes, he saw the clear night sky. When he looked down, he realized that he was stepping on air, as if he was 10,000 meters high in the sky. He screamed and struggled out of reflex. As he struggled, the paper tape around his chest snapped. Ah! Lu Dayong didn't even have the chance to scream for help before he fell from the 15th floor and landed on the sidewalk in front of the apartment with a thud. Not long after he fell, the fire in his apartment had already ignited the entire living room. The raging flames shot out of the window and quickly ignited the paper tape that Hong Kongquan had used to hang Lu Dayong. In the blink of an eye, the only piece of paper that could be used as evidence was burned to ashes silently. Fire. Fire. The passers-by finally noticed the situation upstairs and called the police for the firefighters. Lu Dayong, who had fallen to his death on the sidewalk, was also discovered. For a moment, the sound of police sirens, fire engine sirens, and ambulance sirens could be heard in the residential area. The quiet night became especially noisy. The 2 members of the Special Operations Forces tailing Hong Kongquan almost turned the entire gay bar upside down, but they couldn't find Hong Kongquan. In the end, they had no choice but to grab the man wearing Hong Kongquan's down jacket and interrogate him for a long time. All they knew was that the down jacket had been given to him by a stranger in exchange for an old leather flight jacket that he was wearing. Hong Kongquan's down jacket was a famous brand, and the man's leather flight jacket was worthless. Of course, he exchanged it without a second thought. Knowing that Hong Kongquan had already slipped away half an hour ago, the 2 staff members were furious, but there was nothing they could do. There were many places to go after leaving the bar, and they didn't even know which direction Hong Kongquan had left in. In the end, they had no choice but to call the headquarters to inform them that the operation had failed. When Yin Shixiang received the news, he immediately reported it to Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiaoheng was still in the temporary command room in the Senate building, accompanying them to do the final system adjustments. Hearing this news, Hua Xiaoheng smiled as if he had expected it. He nodded and said, "Yes, tell them to stop working and come back to write a self-reflection. Write down the reason for the failure in detail. Hong Kongquan is my superior. If he couldn't even get rid of these junior staff members, I would be surprised." Yin Shixiang understood what Hua Xiaoheng meant and immediately said, "Then what should we do? Do we need to turn on full surveillance? But Speaker Long hasn't signed it yet." Hua Xiaoheng looked at his watch. It was already 1 o'clock in the morning. Another day had passed. "Call Senior Speaker Long right now. You must find Senior Speaker Long himself. Tell him that I want to speak to him and that I have something important to report." After that, he smiled faintly and said, "I want to see who is the person who stopped me this time." This was the first update. Today, I believe in my brother's fighting power. The monthly votes will soon be in the Major General's hands. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the monthly votes would be 900 plus updates. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the 3rd update. Whether there will be a 4th update, please pay attention to the end of the 3rd update. P.S. Thank you to the leader of the alliance, Momo Moshi, for tipping 100,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Thank you to Jeffrey Joshu for tipping 10,000 Chidian coins yesterday. Unknowingly, I owe you more. Chapter 10:17. Yin Shixiang froze. It's 1 in the morning? Hua Xiao, even though we don't sleep and are used to working all night, others aren't. This was especially true for those lords in the parliament. They were all little princesses who lived like princes. Just because they were chosen, they felt that they were a cut above the others in the 3 departments of the empire. They could accuse someone of something they didn't agree with. Only someone like Speaker Long could control the members of the Senate. And Speaker Long isn't young anymore. I heard he had an entire day of meetings today. Yin Shixiang scratched his head. Do you really want to call him at this time? Hua Xiaoheng's smile faded and his eyes darkened. What? Are you the first person to stop me? Huh. I wouldn't dare. Yin Shixiang quickly waved his hands. He was so scared that he was tongue-tied. I just wanted to remind Hua Xiao, then go make the call. Hua Xiaoheng turned on his computer. Say it's an emergency. If I can't get through to Speaker Long in 10 minutes, I will personally visit him at his home. Yes, Chief. Yin Shixiang didn't dare to say anything else and quickly jogged out to call Speaker Long. Normally, when someone called someone of Speaker Long's level, if it was official business, they would first call his office. Speaker Long's office was the Secretariat. For example, no matter when they wanted to contact General G, they would call his office, or Office G for short. To get more familiar, they would directly call Secretary Chow. General G and Speaker Long's offices were staffed 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. When the staff received the call, they would transfer it to the person in charge according to the priority of the matter. Yin Shixiang followed his usual practice and called Speaker Long's secretariat. The phone rang a few times but no one picked up. It was the automatic reply system. Hello, this is the Senate Secretariat. Please leave your name, phone number, and questions after the beep. We will reply as soon as possible. D your head, I'll let you D. Yin Shixiang was furious. The interim election was imminent, and the Special Operations Forces wanted nothing more than to grow four hands to work hard. How could those little princesses in the Senate Secretariat not even pick up the phone? Thinking about the Hua office, Hua Xiaoheng's office, phone calls, there would always be people answering, recording, and immediately transferring to the person in charge. Every call would be guaranteed to be answered within an hour, and for urgent matters, it would be responded to within 10 minutes. But what about the parliament? During these 7 or 8 days, Yin Shixiang could be considered to have witnessed the elegance of the people in the parliament. In a fit of anger, he picked up the phone and turned on the automatic dialing program. He refused to leave a message. As long as the other side of the phone kept ringing, he would not be able to enter the voicemail program. 10 minutes later, the person on duty in the Secretariat of the Senate was finally woken up by the incessant ringing of the phone. He picked up the phone and said sleepily, "Hello, this is..." Before he could finish, Yin Shixiang roared, "This is Major General Hua's office from the Special Operations Forces. Major General Hua had an urgent matter to discuss with Speaker Long. Please transfer it to Speaker Long immediately." The person on the other side was obviously shocked. After a while he asked, "Who are you? Who are you looking for?" "I'm not looking for you." Yin Shixiang put his hands on his hips. "Major General Hua of the Special Operations Forces wishes to see Speaker Long for an urgent matter. Hurry up and inform Speaker Long. If I don't hear your response within a minute, I'll go to Speaker Long's house myself." The person on the other side of the phone finally came to his senses and quickly said, "Please wait." He pressed the hold button on the phone and asked Special Assistant Yang, who was working overtime. "Special Assistant Yang, Major General Hua of the Special Operations Forces wishes to see Speaker Long for an urgent matter. Do you think we should inform Speaker Long?" Special Assistant Yang frowned and looked at his watch. "It's already 1:30 in the morning. Why can't they talk about it tomorrow?" Speaker Long had been in meetings all day and was exhausted. He had just fallen asleep. "Okay, I'll go inform them." The person on duty picked up the phone and said to Yin Shixiang, "Hello, Speaker Long has been in meetings all day and is exhausted. He has already gone home to rest. Can you talk about it tomorrow if you have something to say?" "I can't. If I could say it tomorrow, why would I call now?" Yin Shixiang was very stubborn. "Okay, Speaker Long has gone home, right? We'll go find him now." Yin Shixiang was about to hang up when Special Assistant Yang picked up the phone and started talking to him. "Is this Colonel Yin?" Special Assistant Yang recognized Yin Shixiang's voice. "What is it? Can't you wait until tomorrow? You know, Speaker Long is very old. He had a whole day of video meetings today and almost vomited." Yin Shixiang's voice became sinister. "Who are you? What right do you have to stop us from seeing Speaker Long?" "I am Special Assistant Yang." Special Assistant Yang quickly introduced himself. "Colonel Yin, do you not remember me? We even spoke at the Senate today." "Spoke? Why don't I remember?" Yin Shixiang pretended to be confused. "How can that be? Didn't you give me a document this morning? Have you forgotten?" As soon as Special Assistant Yang finished speaking, he knew he had said the wrong thing. Unfortunately, it was too late for him to take it back. Yin Shixiang laughed like a barbell. His laughter was like a hammer, making Special Assistant Yang very uncomfortable. Ah. Yes, I gave you the document this morning and said it needed Speaker Long's signature. It's getting better and better. Special Assistant Yang, where's the document? Special Assistant Yang smiled good-naturedly. I asked Miss Gu to give the document to Speaker Long to sign. Didn't she tell you? Yin Shixiang. Miss Gu? Yes, it's our new intern, Miss Gu Nianji. Special Assistant Yang flipped through the address book of the Senate staff. I have her phone number here. Do you want to call and ask her? Special Assistant Yang clearly knew that Gu Nianji grew up with Yin Shixiang and Hua Xiaoheng, but now he deliberately pretended not to know and even acted like he was doing his job to find Yin Shixiang's phone number. Yin Shixiang was disgusted, but he couldn't say that Special Assistant Yang was in the wrong, because according to convention this was how it should be handled. Yin Shixiang's face darkened as he asked Special Assistant Yang for confirmation. Did you really ask Miss Gu to give that document to Speaker Long to sign? Yes, I remember giving the document to her and asking her to sign it after Speaker Long's meeting is over. Did she not finish her job? Special Assistant Yang pretended to ask the person on duty next to him, where did Miss Gu put the signed document? Special Assistant Yang, Miss Gu got off work on time today. She didn't bring any document to Speaker Long to sign? The person on duty expressed that he didn't know anything about this. Oh, then I'm sorry. Miss Gu was probably too busy today and forgot to bring it to Speaker Long to sign. You also know that she is a newcomer, so we can't be too harsh on newcomers. How about this, when she comes tomorrow, I'll ask her to bring the document to Speaker Long to sign. What do you think? Special Assistant Yang twirled the pen in his hand and asked happily. There's no need. Yin Shixiang glanced at Hua Xiaoheng's increasingly impatient gaze and quickly said, There's no need to trouble you. I'll come over right away to retrieve the document and personally bring it to Speaker Long to sign. Special Assistant Yang was unhappy. Colonel Yin, I already said that Speaker Long is sleeping now. What's the big deal? Can't you wait until tomorrow? This was the second update, and the monthly votes had arrived at 900 plus updates. Today he believed in his comrades' fighting spirit, and the monthly votes were almost in the Major General's hands. At 7 o'clock p.m. the third update. If there was a fourth update, please pay attention to the end of the third update. Chapter 10:18. What's the big deal? Why would I call you at 1:30 in the middle of the night if it's not a big deal? Yin Shixiang was really angry. He rolled up his sleeves and wanted to punch Special Assistant Yang in the face. Colonel Yin, how can you say that? Special Assistant Yang's expression darkened. We work overtime every day. It's already 1:30 in the morning and we're still working in the office. Whose job isn't important? Moreover, Speaker Long is the stabilizing force of the Senate. To the people of the nation, Speaker Long's health is the most important. Alright, I'll talk to you later. I still have a few documents to deal with. We'll talk tomorrow morning. With that, he hung up. Yin Shixiang's eyes widened. He couldn't believe his ears. He actually hung up on him. After he clearly said that Hua Xiaoheng wanted to see Speaker Long, he still hung up on him. Did this person eat a bear's heart or leopard's gall, or did he have prematurely dementia? Yin Shixiang turned to look at Hua Xiaoheng and said incredulously. Special Assistant Yang said that no matter how important it is, we have to wait until tomorrow. Speaker Long's health is the most important thing. Hua Xiaoheng crossed his arms and leaned against the desk. He narrowed his eyes. Really? Is Special Assistant Yang teaching us how to be human? Or is he teaching us how to do things? Both. Yin Shixiang nodded fiercely. Should we teach him back? Hua Xiaoheng straightened up. Let's go. The two left the temporary command center of the Senate building and took the elevator to Speaker Long's office. Speaker Long's status was special. An entire floor of the Senate was under the jurisdiction of the Dragon Office. The Secretariat was the head of this place. When Hua Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang stepped into the Dragon Office's Secretariat, the staff working overtime in the Secretariat thought they were seeing things. Two tall and imposing men in military uniforms walked in, and the air in the entire Secretariat area seemed to freeze. After a while, someone recognized them as Major General Hua, who was sent by General Ji to monitor the interim election. The slightly shorter man beside him was his personal secretary, Colonel Yin Shixiang. Major General Hua, why did you come in person? You could have just given me a call if you needed anything. Why did you have to come here personally? Executive Assistant Yang walked out of the small office quickly and extended his hand to Hua Xiaoheng with a smile. Hua Xiaoheng didn't hold his hand. He merely looked at him calmly and said, I want to see Speaker Long. You said I couldn't do it when I called, so I had no choice but to come personally. Executive Assistant Yang shook his head and smiled. He casually looked around, and one of his trusted subordinates hurried over to help. Major General Hua, right? Our Special Assistant Yang is also thinking about Senior Speaker Long's health. You also know that there are priorities. Look, it's almost dawn anyway. Before that person could finish, Yin Shixiang had already interrupted him with a sneer. Where did this pheasant come from to add a scene to himself? Is our chief talking to you? The man's face turned red from Yin Shixiang's sarcasm. He straightened his neck and said unhappily, Colonel Yin, why are you scolding me? What did I say wrong? What did you say wrong? I don't think you've said anything right. Yin Shixiang took a step forward and stood in front of Hua Xiaoheng. His eyes scanned the faces of all the staff working overtime in the secretariat. His gaze fell on Executive Assistant Yang's face and he said with a fierce expression, How dare you not answer the chief's question? If you were in the military, you would have been grounded by now. Executive Assistant Yang took off his gold-rimmed glasses and picked up a cloth to wipe them slowly. He laughed and said, Colonel Yin, do you know where you are? The Senate? Isn't it? Yin Shixiang deliberately looked around. The few female staff members who were sneaking glances at him lowered their heads and blushed. Their hearts were pounding from his devilish smile. Yes, this is not the military. So you don't have to show off your rules in the Senate, do you? Executive Assistant Yang put on his glasses and looked at his watch. It's almost 2 o'clock. Speaker Long is old and doesn't sleep well. He wakes up early in the morning and will be awake in about 3 hours. Major General Hua, do you want to rest here or return to the temporary command room first and wait for me to call you in 3 hours? Hua Xiaoheng shook his head and said calmly, I want to see Speaker Long. Now, immediately. There was no room for compromise at all. Executive Assistant Yang was a little annoyed. Yes, Hua Xiaoheng was in a high position. He was 2 years younger than Executive Assistant Yang, but he had already climbed to such a high position. Executive Assistant Yang claimed that he didn't have a good father, so he couldn't become a young talent like Hua Xiaoheng. But he couldn't bully others with his power. Did he think the people in the Senate were pushovers that anyone could bully? Executive Assistant Yang's expression darkened. Major General Hua, I already said that Speaker Long will be awake in 3 hours. Can't you wait a little longer? Hua Xiaoheng put his hands behind his back and shook his head seriously. No, I want to see Speaker Long immediately. He repeated what he said earlier and his expression grew colder. His low voice should have been pleasant, but the pressure in it made people shudder. Executive Assistant Yang bared his teeth. This was outrageous. He was treating this place like his special operations forces. Look at how arrogant he was, he probably didn't even remember his own surname. Executive Assistant Yang cursed Hua Xiaoheng in his heart, and his expression was very unpleasant. He thought about it for a while and said, How about I try to make a call for you? I already said that Speaker Long is sleeping. His house isn't like here where no one answers the phone 24 hours a day. If Speaker Long can answer the phone 24 hours a day, then what's the use of the secretariat? Hua Xiaoheng looked at Executive Assistant Yang calmly as if he was looking at a dead man. Executive Assistant Yang, please don't forget your duty. Malfeasance is a serious crime in your case. Major General Hua, I also studied law. Don't use the law to scare me. Executive Assistant Yang finally said sarcastically, I'm just doing things by the book. You're used to being privileged, so naturally you won't understand our difficulties. Special Assistant Yang, every word you say today will be used as evidence against you. Yin Shixiang pointed at the surveillance cameras in the Secretariat office area. I want a copy of the footage here to take away. Take away? What right do you have to do that? Executive Assistant Yang was so angry that he laughed. Let me tell you, everything I said today is backed up by evidence. I definitely won't violate any laws. Won't violate laws just because you have evidence? Executive Assistant Yang, your legal knowledge is mediocre. Hua Xiaoheng calmly looked away and didn't want to argue with him anymore. Big Xiong, bring the documents over. We're going to look for Speaker Long. Executive Assistant Yang gritted his teeth and didn't dare to reason with Hua Xiaoheng anymore. He asked his subordinates to rummage through the pile of documents and found the craft envelope that Yin Shixiang had brought that morning at the very bottom. Here, I don't know who stuffed it here. Look, it's still well sealed. No one has touched it. Does Speaker Long know about this? Hua Xiaoheng asked before he left. Executive Assistant Yang thought about it. You'll have to ask Miss Gu about this. I only remember telling her that I told her, but I don't know if she asked Speaker Long. It was the third watch. P.S. It's already 2:30 a.m. here, so I can't write anymore. It's the third watch today. Let's see if I'll be stimulated by the monthly votes tomorrow. Chapter 10:19. Hua Xiaoheng turned to look at Special Assistant Yang and said calmly, "Looks like it's all Miss Gu's fault." Special Assistant Yang smiled and spread his hands. "I didn't say that. But justice is in the hearts of people, so we'll have to ask Miss Gu when she comes to work in the morning. However, I still say that Miss Gu is an intern and a newcomer. She was just beaten up by the people from the office of the Prime Minister for the sake of the Senate, so I definitely won't blame her. No matter what she did, I don't think Speaker Long will pursue it. Major General Hua, don't worry, she has you as her backer. If she does something wrong, I will definitely take the blame for her. She won't have any responsibility." As he spoke, he placed his right hand on his chest and gave Hua Xiaoheng a 90-degree bow. "Special Assistant Yang, what do you mean?" Yin Shixiang couldn't stand it anymore and wanted to slap Special Assistant Yang's hand. "Does Miss Gu have an irreconcilable grudge against you? Why are you trying to defame her like this?" "Colonel Yin, you have to be reasonable. When did I say anything to defame her? I want to put her on a pedestal. You all heard it just now, and the surveillance cameras also recorded it. I said that even if she did something wrong, I will take the blame for her. You can rest assured. Miss Gu will definitely be fine. If anything happens to me, I won't let anything happen to her." Special Assistant Yang spoke with certainty, as if he couldn't be nicer to Gu Nianji. Yin Shixiang also had a sharp tongue. Seeing that Special Assistant Yang was playing word games with him, he couldn't help but fight back. Hua Xiaoheng coughed lightly. "Let's go see Speaker Long first. It's more urgent there." Yin Shixiang could only glare at Special Assistant Yang before turning to leave the Senate building with Hua Xiaoheng. When the two of them sat in the car, Yin Shixiang said angrily, "Hua Xiao, why didn't you let me continue? Why did you let him put the blame on Nianji?" Special Assistant Yang said he would take the blame for Gu Nianji, but it was actually a surefire way to advance. If Gu Nianji was really the one who caused the trouble, and Special Assistant Yang took the blame for Gu Nianji, then both Hua Xiaoheng and Speaker Long would owe him a favor. If Gu Nianji hadn't caused the trouble, then Special Assistant Yang had purposely made things difficult for Gu Nianji. However, he had said that he was taking the blame for Gu Nianji. Therefore, in the eyes of outsiders, it was Gu Nianji who had caused the trouble, and Special Assistant Yang, as her superior, had not pursued the matter. He did both the good and the bad. In office politics, this kind of person was almost at the pinnacle. Hua Xiaoheng replied calmly, "This is Nianji's problem. Let her handle it herself." "But she's just an intern." Yin Shixiang shouted. "How reassured are you? What if Special Assistant Yang successfully shifted the blame to her? This matter can be big or small. You're not really going to let Nianji handle it alone, are you? She wants to develop her career in the Senate, so Special Assistant Yang can be her practice partner. If she can't even handle Special Assistant Yang, she might as well become a lawyer." Hua Xiaoheng didn't want to talk about this anymore. "Call Speaker Long's house and tell them we're here to see Speaker Long." While Yin Shixiang was making the call, Special Assistant Yang was also making a call to Speaker Long's house. Speaker Long's house also had an office, and there were people on duty 24 hours a day. Special Assistant Yang's call was picked up first. He smiled and said, "Major General Hua has something to discuss with Speaker Long. Keep an eye on him and don't disturb Speaker Long's sleep." The person on duty was also a member of the Senate Secretariat. When he heard this, he immediately said, "Got it, Special Assistant Yang. Don't worry, we will definitely ensure Speaker Long's sleep time." Yin Shixiang called several times before the person on the other end picked up and asked him what was the matter. Yin Shixiang said directly, "Major General Hua, who is supervising the interim election, has an urgent matter to discuss with Speaker Long immediately. Please pass on this to Speaker Long." The person on the other end was very polite. "Okay, I'll pass on the message as soon as Speaker Long wakes up." He then hung up. When Yin Shixiang called again, he couldn't get through. F** King retard. Yin Shixiang cursed under his breath and put away his phone. He said to Hua Xiaoheng, "They're on the same page as Special Assistant Yang. They said they can only see us when Speaker Long wakes up." Hua Xiaoheng didn't get angry. Instead, he smiled and nodded leisurely. "Not bad. I wonder if Speaker Long knows that his subordinates have already taken over his position." Yin Shixiang froze for a moment, then suddenly understood. Could this be the reason why Speaker Long is looking for a successor outside? His own secretariat is already too big to handle. I'm not sure about that. Wu Xiaoheng looked non-committal. He rarely explained anything to Yin Shixiang and the others. For a soldier, obeying orders was their duty. What was there to explain? Would they stop if they didn't explain? There was no such thing. The two of them stopped talking and quickly arrived at Speaker Long's house. Speaker Long's house was a very secluded courtyard house on Second Ring Road in the imperial capital. It wasn't far from Bai Jianqing's courtyard house. Wu Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang got out of the car and stood in front of Speaker Long's courtyard house, waiting for Fan Jian to ring the doorbell. After a few minutes, someone yawned and opened the door. "What's the matter? It's the middle of the night. Can't you let me sleep?" The person opened the door while muttering. Under the dim yellow streetlight, he looked up and saw two men in military uniforms standing in front of him. He was instantly frightened and his legs began to tremble. "Oh, who are you looking for?" the person asked nervously. He didn't recognize who the two men were. Wu Xiaoheng and Yin Shixiang had been to Speaker Long's house before, but it was the time when people were the most sleepy. The person didn't have enough sleep, so his IQ and memory were in a state of decline. He was instantly shocked by the two men's military uniforms. Wu Xiaoheng folded his hands behind his back and looked down at the limestone steps in front of Speaker Long's house. He didn't say a word. Yin Shixiang stepped forward and said, "We were sent by the military. This is our Major General Hua. He has an urgent matter to see Speaker Long." The person was now fully awake and quickly opened the door. "Oh, it's Major General Hua. Please come in. Please come in." This person was the old gatekeeper of Speaker Long's house. He usually saw a lot of people, and because he only wanted to be a gatekeeper, he didn't have many conflicts of interest. Therefore, he knew the situation at the top of the imperial capital better than Special Assistant Yang. He recognized it was Wu Xiaoheng and immediately let him in without hesitation. After entering, he took the initiative to go to the main house to find someone and ask Speaker Long to speak. The secretary on duty in Speaker Long's secretariat remembered Special Assistant Yang's instructions and still refused to wake Speaker Long up. With a disapproving expression, she said, "It's not a big deal. Don't you know that Speaker Long doesn't sleep well? Just wait for another 2 hours. It's not like the sky is going to collapse." The sky is not going to collapse. Something that can make Major General Hua personally visit in the middle of the night might really collapse. The gatekeeper was furious. "You're not going to wake him? I'll go. I've been with Grandfather Long for more than 40 years. Even if I disturb his sleep for an entire day, he won't do anything to me." As he spoke, he pushed the secretary on duty away and ran straight to Speaker Long's bedroom. The secretary on duty panicked and hurriedly said, "Hey, you can't do this. Don't you have any rules?" However, he couldn't do anything to this 60-year-old gatekeeper. He didn't intend to be promoted and wasn't a staff member of the Senate. As long as Speaker Long didn't blame him, his job as a gatekeeper would be secure. He could only watch as the gatekeeper opened the door to Speaker Long's bedroom. The person who opened the door was Speaker Long's wife. She said unhappily, "What's wrong? Old Long is still sleeping. He had a meeting all day yesterday and only came back after 10 at night. He only fell asleep when it was almost 1. What's the matter? Can't you keep your voice down?" The gatekeeper lowered his voice and said, "Mrs. Long, Major General Hua is here. He said he has an urgent matter to see Speaker Long." "Major General Hua? Which Major General Hua?" You mean Major General Hua from the military?" Mrs. Long was shocked. Her intuition told her that it wasn't a trivial matter. She immediately said, "Take him to the study. I'll go wake Old Long up." Mrs. Long hurried back to the bedroom and pushed Speaker Long. "Old Long? Old Long? Get up, Major General Hua is here. He said he has an urgent matter to see you." Speaker Long suddenly opened his eyes. "Oh, is Xiaoheng here?" "Yes, I asked someone to take him to your study." Mrs. Long brought some clothes over for Speaker Long to put on. "Go quickly. Don't delay." Speaker Long looked at his watch with a sullen expression. It was 2:30 in the morning. Something big must have happened for Wu Xiaoheng to come to see him at this hour. This was the first night watch. At 1 in the afternoon, the monthly ticket was 1,200 plus night watch. At 7 in the evening, the third night watch. At 10 in the evening, the monthly ticket was 1,500 plus night watch. Chapter 10:20. He hurriedly put on his clothes and went to the door of the study. He saw Yin Shixiang standing there in his military uniform, just like the orderlies standing guard in the military. Speaker Long's heart sank even further. Yin Shixiang was already a colonel. What could have happened for a colonel to stand guard for them? Yin Shixiang saw that Speaker Long had arrived and reached out to open the door. Speaker Long, please come in. Our chief has been waiting for a long time. Speaker Long smiled and patted Yin Shixiang on the shoulder. Waiting for a long time? Big Xiong, you're really good at making things up. It took me less than 3 minutes to come to the study from the time I heard the news. You're exaggerating, aren't you? Yin Shixiang knew that Speaker Long had always been approachable like this. He also chuckled. You calculated the time from the time you received the news that we came to your house. But our time was calculated from 1:30 in the morning when we went to your Senate building secretariat to request to see you. Speaker Long was taken aback and looked at his watch. It's 2:30 now. 1:30? I don't think I was asleep then. Why didn't anyone inform me? Yin Shixiang rolled his eyes in his mind and didn't say anything else. He gestured for Speaker Long to enter. Yin Shixiang waited for Speaker Long to enter the study before closing the door and standing guard at the door. In the study, Speaker Long looked at Hua Xiaoheng, who was also standing straight, and wondered, what's going on? Big Xiong is speaking very strangely. The door to the study wasn't closed tightly, so Hua Xiaoheng heard everything. He didn't explain but directly took out a brown envelope and handed it to Speaker Long. This is the application that General Ji asked me to write in the wee hours of yesterday. I had Big Xiong send it to your secretariat early in the morning for you to sign so that we could start monitoring an investigation. In the end, I waited from morning until now, and it's already the next morning before I see you. Please sign it first. Speaker Long frowned and took the brown envelope from Hua Xiaoheng's hand. He walked to the desk and sat down. He used a knife to cut open the envelope and pulled out a document inside to read it. His expression suddenly changed. What? You want to monitor him? Speaker Long almost called out the name Hong Kongquan on the document, but he quickly stopped himself from saying the name. Yes, hurry up and sign it. Once you're done, I'll immediately make the arrangements. Hua Xiaoheng spoke unhurriedly. Although his tone was calm, there was a hint of urgency in his words. We've already been delayed for a day. We can't delay any longer. Speaker Long's frown deepened. What? Xiaoheng, what reason do you have to make such a request to a minister in the cabinet? I want to see more evidence. Unlike General Ji, Speaker Long was more concerned about whether or not Hua Xiaoheng's organization was abusing its power domestically. In the national organization, he would not allow any organization to have the possibility of being dominant. The parliament not only balanced the military and the cabinet, but also performed the duty of monitoring the military and the cabinet. Hua Xiaoheng's special operations forces already had too much power overseas. He had to be vigilant and not let this power extend to the country. Hua Xiaoheng also knew this reason, so he had always kept his distance from domestic affairs. He would not interfere if he could. This time, the monitoring of the national interim election was also at the request of Speaker Long, General Ji, and the various ministers in the cabinet. He had only begun to arrange the work after obtaining their authorization. Similarly, Hua Xiaoheng could not do much with the monitoring of Hong Kongquan without Speaker Long's signature. He could only ask his subordinates to pay special attention to Hong Kongquan, but he could not conduct actual monitoring. Naturally, he could not grasp more of Hong Kongquan's whereabouts. In fact, Hua Xiaoheng was also very curious. Where did Hong Kongquan go after getting rid of the two people following him last night? From the depths of his heart, he believed that Hong Kongquan might have wanted his life, but he was not willing to believe that Hong Kongquan was a traitor who betrayed the interests of the country. The conflict between him and Hong Kongquan should be a conflict among the people in a power struggle. It was completely different from the conflict between the enemy and the traitor who betrayed the interests of the country. However, it did not matter whether he believed it or not. To prove what Hong Kongquan was trying to do, they needed concrete evidence. The reason why they had to conduct comprehensive monitoring of him was to prove whether the information they received was true or false. Because Hong Kongquan's position as the head of the Secret Service was too important. Previously, the deputy head of the Secret Service, Bai Yuxing, who was in charge of the North American region, had committed treason. This led to the death of the Secret Service's top spy who had been lying in ambush in the US CIA for many years, and the annihilation of the Secret Service's field personnel in North America. Now, it was the head of the Secret Service who was suspected. If he really was a mole, then all of the Huaxia Empire's arrangements on the entire Blue Planet would have to be reshuffled. The losses involved here, whether in terms of human lives or property, were immeasurable. Senior Speaker Long, we received a report, but we can't disclose the details for now. That's why we've decided to conduct comprehensive surveillance in order to prove his innocence, Hua Xiaoheng said in a tone that was neither servile nor overbearing. He didn't immediately condemn Hong Kongquan. Understanding this, Speaker Long's face turned even paler. He lowered his head and quickly signed his name, stamped it, and pressed his fingerprint. He handed it back to Hua Xiaoheng and asked coldly, "If it was so serious, why didn't you inform me immediately? It has already been 22 hours since old Ji signed it and you gave it to me." At times like this, time was truly life. The lives of all the Secret Service personnel in their country were at stake. Hua Xiaoheng took the brown envelope and carefully examined the 3 signed application documents. He took out one and placed it in front of Speaker Long. He said calmly, "You can keep this for your records." He then said nonchalantly, "As soon as General Ji signed it, I asked Big Xiong to send this envelope to your secretariat. I remember that Big Xiong personally handed it to Special Assistant Yang at around 6 o'clock yesterday morning." Speaker Long was taken aback. "You said it was handed to Special Assistant Yang at around 6 o'clock yesterday morning? Why didn't he mention it to me?" "I don't know about that." Hua Xiaoheng shook his head calmly. "I waited all day but you didn't sign the authorization. It wasn't until 1:30 this morning that I couldn't wait any longer. This matter couldn't be delayed any longer, so I personally went to your secretariat to look for him. You know, this person was my old superior in the military, so I was very worried about alerting the enemy." Speaker Long remembered that Yin Shixiang had said that they had been waiting for a long time when they were at the door. They really had been waiting for a long time. Speaker Long's chubby face gradually turned red and purple, filled with anger. With a sullen expression, he picked up the phone and called the Secretariat of the Senate. Hua Xiaoheng also connected to his Bluetooth headset and issued an order to his staff who were on standby. "Authorized. The operation will begin immediately." The comprehensive surveillance of Hong Kongquan was to cover all of his whereabouts from all angles. In addition to immediately taking over the internet and telephones in his office, home, and all of his residences, they also had to go to the places he frequented to install surveillance equipment. Of course, the most important thing was to retrieve Hong Kongquan's tracking chip from the Special Operations Forces Central Control Room and read the data. Hua Xiaoheng didn't really care that the 2 Special Operations Forces personnel had lost track of Hong Kongquan, because he had a trump card in hand. Every member of the Secret Service had a tracking chip in their body, which was controlled by Hua Xiaoheng's Special Operations Forces. Unless they resigned from the Secret Service or died, the chip could not be removed. Removing the chip without permission was tantamount to treason. And the data of the chip could not be read by the Special Operations Forces at will. In other words, the data of the tracking chip was stored in the Special Operations Forces Central Control Room supercomputer, but in order to read the data, authorization was required. As long as he obtained authorization from Speaker Long and General Ji, he would be able to read the data of Hong Kongquan's tracking chip and know all of Hong Kongquan's whereabouts. Naturally, he would also know where Hong Kongquan had gone after getting rid of his pursuers last night. When Bai Yuxing had committed treason, he had used Bai Yuxing's tracking chip to track him down. Unfortunately, he had failed at the last step, and Bai Yuxing had escaped. Thinking of this, Hua Xiaoheng's eyes narrowed. He had a bad feeling about this. Yesterday, the 2 Special Operations Forces personnel had lost track of Hong Kongquan. Had they already alerted the enemy? What if the tracking chip in Hong Kongquan's body had been removed a long time ago, just like Bai Yuxing's? On second thought, if it had really been removed, then they wouldn't need any other evidence. Just this point alone was enough to convict Hong Kongquan of treason. Hua Xiaoheng's heart skipped a beat, and he immediately issued an order to his subordinates. Notify all customs ports across the country. From now on, anyone leaving customs must undergo an iris scan and fingerprint test. Immediately send the iris and fingerprint data of Target A to the electronic detection system of all customs ports across the country. Anyone who is detected with this data is not allowed to leave customs. He hoped that he was overthinking everything, but if Hong Kongquan was really like Bai Yuxing and realized that they were monitoring him, then his next step would definitely be to leave the Huaxia Empire. It was the second night watch and the monthly pass was 1,200 plus one night watch. 7 p.m. the third night watch. The fourth night watch was 1,500 plus one night watch. Chapter 1021. In order to monitor Hong Kongquan, the Special Operations Forces had already set up a special operation team. Originally, everything was ready and only needed the authorization. Once Hua Xiaoheng received the authorization, they could immediately start work. His orders were carried out in an orderly manner. Within 5 minutes, the computer systems of all customs export ports had successfully received Hong Kongquan's iris and fingerprint data. As long as he intended to leave the Wuxia Empire, no matter which customs port he used, he would be discovered immediately. Xiaoheng didn't let these people check his passport data because he knew that if Hong Kongquan wanted to defect, he would have used a real passport. There was no way to check that. The only thing that could be checked was his iris and fingerprint data, which couldn't be changed regardless of whether he used a real or fake passport. All government employees had this data stored in the central control room's supercomputer. After checking that the customs database was updated normally, Xiaoheng was sure that there were no omissions. He had done so much work in less than 5 minutes. As for Speaker Long, 5 minutes wasn't even enough for him to argue with the Senate Secretariat. He suppressed his anger and first asked about everyone's work situation. After expressing his condolences one by one, he asked as calmly as possible, "Where is Special Assistant Yang? Isn't he here?" "Speaker Long, Special Assistant Yang has already stayed up for 2 nights. He just went back to rest. Is there something you need? Would you like me to go to his house and ask him to take your call?" The staff on duty at the Secretariat said respectfully to Speaker Long. Speaker Long's tone froze. Already stayed up for 2 nights? Even if he didn't get credit, he still worked hard. How was he supposed to ask Special Assistant Yang what he was up to at this time? Putting down the phone, Speaker Long's expression was uncertain. He rubbed his hands and looked at Xiaoheng. "Xiaoheng, is there some kind of misunderstanding? Special Assistant Yang has always been smart and capable. He isn't that kind of person." Xiaoheng didn't add fuel to the fire. He only said in a very objective tone, "I don't know Special Assistant Yang well, so I don't know what kind of person he is. I can only tell you how long it took for the application to reach you today. If it wasn't for the urgency of the matter, I wouldn't have visited you late at night and disturbed your sleep." "Xiaoheng, that's not what I meant. You're treating me like an outsider." Speaker Long quickly raised his hand to comfort Xiaoheng. "I just don't understand. Normally, Special Assistant Yang wouldn't hide such an important matter from me." Xiaoheng declined to comment. He bowed and said, "You'll have to ask Special Assistant Yang for the exact reason. When my personal secretary sent this application to the Secretariat, he made it very clear that we need your signature as soon as possible. As for other matters, we can't say too much due to the confidentiality clause." Speaker Long opened his mouth and wanted to say a few words on Special Assistant Yang's behalf. At least in front of outsiders, Special Assistant Yang was his man, so he could not let others look down on him. However, Xiaoheng's words also made Speaker Long think of something bad. If this document was really sent by Yin Shixiang personally, and he even said that it should be done as soon as possible, it meant that the matter was very urgent. How could Special Assistant Yang make such a big mistake? Speaker Long suppressed the questions in his mind and smiled at Xiao. "I understand. I will investigate this matter thoroughly, and the person responsible will be dealt with accordingly. Xiaoheng, you can rest assured." Xiaoheng stood up. His expression was normal. "I don't have anything to worry about. The Secretariat is your organization, not mine. Special Assistant Yang is your special assistant, not mine. Sorry for disturbing you today. Goodbye." Xiaoheng left Speaker Long's house with Yin Shixiang and drove to the Senate building. Yin Shixiang quietly took out his phone and wanted to text Gu Nianji to remind her to be careful of Special Assistant Yang. Xiaoheng stopped him. "Don't contact Nianji. She should know what to do." Judging from Special Assistant Yang's attitude, it wasn't the first time that he had targeted Nianji. Xiaoheng didn't mind letting him do as he pleased. The more he pleased, the more the good impression he had accumulated with Speaker Long over the years would gradually be lost. At the end of the day, only Speaker Long could get rid of Special Assistant Yang. With Speaker Long's protective stance, if someone else attacked Special Assistant Yang, Speaker Long would protect Special Assistant Yang even if he knew he was just a figurehead. Because he wouldn't watch others attack his subordinates without doing anything. That would disappoint the other subordinates. After protecting Special Assistant Yang, he would settle old scores with Special Assistant Yang. Like Xiaoheng, Speaker Long and General Ji both had the attitude of, "I'll teach my people a lesson myself. Who do you think you are to teach my people a lesson?" Special Assistant Yang was also certain that he was familiar with Speaker Long's way of doing things, which was why he dared to openly trip up Gu Nianji. But Nianji just graduated from school. This is the first time she's encountered such a situation. Are you really not going to warn her? Yin Shixiang scratched his head. He was very worried for Gu Nianji. In his opinion, Gu Nianji was smart and well-behaved. Although she was eloquent, that was only used in court. In normal life, Gu Nianji never showed off her eloquence in front of them. She had always been a cute, amiable, obedient and sensible little sister. Yin Shixiang was extremely worried about the flawless Gu Nianji from head to toe. He was afraid that she would be taken advantage of by Special Assistant Yang. Hua Xiaoheng quietly watched Yin Shixiang scratch his ears and cheeks as he reasoned with him. After a moment of silence, he said, "Take care of Ma Qiqi. You don't have to worry about Nianji." Yin Shixiang was speechless. After a while he laughed. "Hua Xiao, are you jealous? I don't have any other feelings for Nianji. I only see her as a little sister, my biological sister." Hua Xiaoheng glanced at him. "Nianji doesn't have a brother, so you don't have to worry about her." "Maybe she has a brother? I'm her big brother now, the biological kind." Yin Shixiang joked with Hua Xiaoheng with a cheeky smile. Hua Xiaoheng looked down as if nothing had happened and ignored Yin Shixiang's pestering. Yin Shixiang saw that Hua Xiaoheng was silent and thought about how he actually made Hua Xiaoheng speechless this time. He felt a little proud. However, he didn't feel proud for long before he received a group message from the task force. Yin Shixiang couldn't believe his eyes when he saw his work schedule for the interim general election. He rubbed and looked at it again and found that there were no changes. He hadn't seen it wrong. There was a total of half a month before and after the general election, and he had to sit in the temporary command room for 14 days. In other words, he had to eat and sleep in the Senate building 24 hours a day and couldn't leave for even a moment. Hua Xiaoheng. Yin Shixiang couldn't help but want to ask Hua Xiaoheng if he was the only one in the Special Operations Forces who could hold the fort. However, Hua Xiaoheng looked at him lightly, and Yin Shixiang suddenly felt a lot of pressure. He didn't dare to ask any more and said dejectedly, "Hua Xiaoheng, since you have such high hopes for me, I will definitely do my best." "Okay, just do your best. You can do your best, but you don't have to die." Hua Xiaoheng quickly typed on his laptop and entered a series of commands. He began to check the data of Hong Kanchuan's locator chip. The sky outside the car window gradually turned white. The sky was bright. The weather was good today. It was 8:30 in the morning and the sky was blue and full. The sun was warm and gentle as it shone down from the clouds. Even the air was filled with the fragrance of spring grass. Gu Nianji wore her black and white panda mask and walked into the Senate building's secretariat in a good mood. Before she could sit down in her seat, a colleague rushed over and said, "Miss Gu, Speaker Long and Special Assistant Yang want to talk to you." It was the third night watch. The monthly pass for the fourth night was 1,500 plus the night watch. Chapter 1022. Gu Nianji quickly put down her bag and followed her colleague to Speaker Long's office. The door quietly closed behind her, and Gu Nianji quickly looked up at the office that she had never been in before. The entire office was very spacious, about one-third the size of their secretariat. Their secretariat occupied the entire floor, so it was obvious how large Speaker Long's office was. The room faced south, and the south wall was a whole arc of tempered glass, possibly also bulletproof glass. Standing at the door, one could see the beautiful scenery of the entire imperial capital at a glance, and it made one feel like they were at the top of the food chain. Would one lose themselves after looking at this scenery for a long time? All kinds of strange thoughts flashed through Gu Nianji's mind. Speaker Long sat behind the wide desk, and his expression was originally not very good, but when he saw Gu Nianji's face was still wearing a mask, his heart suddenly softened. He said pleasantly, "Nianji, come sit." Gu Nianji saw Special Assistant Yang also sitting next to Speaker Long, looking at her with a smile. Gu Nianji had never seen Special Assistant Yang so friendly to her before, and she was slightly taken aback. She first greeted Speaker Long. "Speaker Long, what can I do for you?" Speaker Long nodded, and after she sat down they first exchanged a few pleasantries, asking if the wound on her face still hurt, when it would heal, how busy she was working here and whether she was used to it. Gu Nianji patiently answered them one by one, and felt even more strange. Everyone was busy now, so why would Speaker Long have the time to chat with her like this? Gu Nianji didn't have to wonder for long before Speaker Long got to the point and asked her, "Nianji, Special Assistant Yang asked you to bring an important document for me to sign yesterday. Why didn't you bring it?" Special Assistant Yang smiled and reminded her. "It's the document in the brown envelope. I told you that it was sent by the Special Operations Forces for Speaker Long to sign. Did you forget all that?" Gu Nianji finally remembered. She clearly rejected it on the spot. She remembered pointing to her face wearing a black and white panda mask and saying, "Special Assistant Yang, how can I find Speaker Long like this? You should find someone else." Then she turned around and left. From beginning to end, she didn't even touch the brown envelope. What did Special Assistant Yang mean by that? Gu Nianji looked at Speaker Long. I don't understand why you're asking this. I clearly told Special Assistant Yang yesterday that I couldn't go to your meeting room to get your signature with the way I looked. I told Special Assistant Yang to find someone else. Speaker Long frowned and looked at Special Assistant Yang again. Is that so? Executive Assistant Yang also thought about it. After a while, he hit his head and said, that seems to be the case. Oh, it's my fault. Miss Gu did say that she didn't want to go and asked me to find someone else. Look at my poor memory. I was busy with something else at the time and forgot about it. Speaker Long, as you know, all of us in the Secretariat have been up all night, and our brains are all muddled. I'm sorry, really sorry. I hope I didn't cause you too much trouble. His apology was very sincere, and he had no intention of pushing the blame onto Gu Nianji at all. It was as if she had been hallucinating when he had tried to push the blame onto her in front of Speaker Long. Now he was pretending to be a good person. Gu Nianji was choked by his words. Senior Speaker Long wanted to say something, but Special Assistant Yang interrupted. However, Senior Speaker Long, I was wrong this time. It was my fault for delaying your mission and I accept the punishment. But... He glanced at Gu Nianji. Miss Gu is an intern here. In fact, after she comes every day she spends most of her time sitting there and playing with her phone. We are all very busy now, so we don't have time to teach her. The other interns are also very busy, and Miss Gu is the only one who is picky about her work. It's really difficult for me to coordinate the work arrangements between Miss Gu and the other colleagues. When Gu Nianji heard this, she was not just choked, but furious. So this was the trap that Special Assistant Yang had dug for her. He first asked her to send the document to Speaker Long, and after she refused, he deliberately delayed the signing of the document. It was obvious that this document was very important. Otherwise, Speaker Long wouldn't have looked like he was going to punish her. And she didn't know if there would be serious consequences if she missed the signing. Gu Nianji remembered that Special Assistant Yang said that the document was sent by the Special Operations Forces, so it was related to Huo Xiao and the others. Thinking about this, Gu Nianji also became nervous. She hoped that she didn't miss too much. After work, she would go to Huo Xiaoheng and ask for forgiveness. This was her responsibility and she wouldn't shirk it. But Special Assistant Yang said that she was picky about her work and unable to coordinate the work arrangements between her and the other colleagues. He was putting all sorts of vicious labels on her that were common for a newcomer in the workplace. She couldn't stand it. Huo Xiaoheng had said that she couldn't drag Special Assistant Yang down with just one incident. But the current situation was no longer just one or two incidents. Special Assistant Yang just didn't like her and simply didn't want her to work in the Senate Secretariat. Gu Nianji could choose not to work in the Senate Secretariat, but she didn't want to be tarnished, and she didn't want her work ethics and attitude to be doubted. Especially to disappoint Speaker Long, an old man who appreciated her very much. Gu Nianji felt very bad. Just like how she had worked so hard and achieved so much, only to be beaten back to where she was because of one incident. She couldn't accept it. Gu Nianji coughed lightly and began to argue with Special Assistant Yang. Speaker Long, is this document very important? She first asked Speaker Long for confirmation of the severity of the matter. If there was a mistake, someone had to be punished. Gu Nianji didn't mind being punished, but she couldn't be the only one. Speaker Long narrowed his eyes and said unhappily, it's a very important document, and it ended up being delayed for more than 20 hours. Xiaoheng had to personally come to me and only sign it at 2:30 in the morning. Gu Nianji's heart sank, but she quickly recalled the brief introduction she had read on the first day of her arrival. She continued to ask calmly, then I would like to ask, for such a large organization like the Senate Secretariat, does it have any rules and regulations for this kind of document exchange? As one of the most powerful organizations in the country, how could it not have rules and regulations? Gu Nianji's question immediately caused Special Assistant Yang's relaxed mood to disappear without a trace. Speaker Long had been in a hurry and hadn't signed the document in time, so he was afraid that it might have delayed Huo Xiaoheng's work. He really hadn't thought about the problem Gu Nianji was talking about. He quickly composed himself and nodded thoughtfully. Of course there is. Our Senate Secretariat isn't a newly opened organization. How can we not have rules and regulations? It's good that there are rules and regulations. Gu Nianji smiled brightly. We work according to the rules and regulations, so whoever is responsible will be responsible. How can Special Assistant Yang take the blame for someone else? Don't you agree, Speaker Long? Special Assistant Yang's face instantly darkened. He had been in the Secretariat for so many years, and no one had ever dared to talk to him about rules and regulations. That was because many of the rules and regulations here were revised by him. But according to the rules and regulations, the document exchange rules were arranged according to the importance of the documents, and different people were responsible for handling them. The document that Hua Xiaoheng had sent should be of the highest level in terms of importance. According to the rules and regulations that he had revised himself, the highest level of documents should be handled by him personally. It was the fourth update, and the monthly pass of 1,500 plus updates had arrived. Chapter 1023. Special Assistant Yang's forehead was covered in tiny beads of sweat when he thought about how he was the one who revised the rules. He thought about how the document came from Hua Xiaoheng and implicated Gu Nianji's inaction. Even Hua Xiaoheng had no choice but to swallow his pride and not make a fuss about it. Because Hua Xiaoheng dared to act up for Gu Nianji, Special Assistant Yang could instantly label Hua Xiaoheng and Gu Nianji as bullies, and ask for sympathy from Speaker Long. Everyone in the imperial capital knew that Speaker Long hated people in high positions who abused their power for personal gain and bullied others. As long as Hua Xiaoheng had this impression in Speaker Long's mind, not only would his future be in danger, but Speaker Long would also never groom Gu Nianji as his successor. It was originally a plan to kill many birds with one stone. How could it fail because of the rules? No, he couldn't let this happen. Special Assistant Yang's eyes flashed and he laughed. You can't say that. The rules are dead but people are alive. At this critical juncture, it's necessary to act according to the situation. As Special Assistant Yang spoke, he secretly glanced at Speaker Long's expression. Seeing that he seemed to be nodding slightly, he immediately calmed down. Thinking about Hua Xiaoheng, Special Assistant Yang suddenly had an idea and said, for example, Major General Hua's Special Operations Forces are absolutely not allowed to intervene in domestic affairs. But this time, due to the urgency of the election, they were allowed to intervene in domestic affairs and monitor the election. Look, isn't this the best example? Although Gu Nianji was calmly looking in Speaker Long's direction, she had been observing Special Assistant Yang's expression from the corner of her eye. Seeing that he had instantly come up with an excuse to shift the blame to himself, Gu Nianji smiled and looked up at Special Assistant Yang. Ignoring Special Assistant Yang's rejection, Gu Nianji persistently said, Special Assistant Yang, don't get sidetracked. Let's first talk about the issue of documents in the Senate Secretariat. Tell me, is there a rule or not? If there is a rule, then according to the rule, who should be sending this document? Special Assistant Yang swallowed and couldn't say a word. Gu Nianji looked at Special Assistant Yang's expression and deduced logically. Why is Special Assistant Yang sweating so much? Don't tell me that according to the rules, this document should be sent by Special Assistant Yang. The smile on Speaker Long's face gradually disappeared. He also looked at Special Assistant Yang, but when he saw how tongue-tied Special Assistant Yang was, he didn't say anything to reprimand him. Gu Nianji averted her gaze from Speaker Long's face and said with a smile, if Special Assistant Yang doesn't object, then my guess is correct. According to regulations, this document should be delivered by Special Assistant Yang personally. That's more like it. After all, it's an important document from Major General Hua of the Special Operations Forces, so it must be sent to Special Assistant Yang, who holds the highest position in our secretariat, right? Special Assistant Yang glared at Gu Nianji. He suddenly realized that it was wrong for him to speak, but it was also wrong for him to remain silent. Her words were stuck in his throat, unable to go up or down. He wished he could find a hole to bury himself in. However, Gu Nianji wasn't going to let him off the hook. She continued to say with a smile, that means that it's your own fault that this document wasn't delivered to Speaker Long in time for his signature. You didn't take the blame for anyone, especially not me, right? Special Assistant Yang made an indistinct noise in his throat. His entire body was puffed up with anger and his cheeks were protruding. He looked like Ouyang Feng who was practicing the toad technique. Gu Nianji continued, let's take a step back and do as Special Assistant Yang said. It's an emergency, so we don't have to follow regulations. Then let's first talk about the Special Operations Force's interference in the surveillance of the interim election. What's there to talk about? Miss Gu, this isn't something you can comment on. It's better to watch your words and actions. Seeing that Gu Nianji had come back to him, Special Assistant Yang felt like he had come back to life again. His cheeks were full of joy. He had never thought highly of Gu Nianji from the beginning. He always felt that she had achieved her current success because of men and not because of herself. In court, Gu Nianji relied on her awesome mentor He Jichu. In life, of course, Gu Nianji relied on her ex-boyfriend, Hua Xiaoheng. Thinking of this, Special Assistant Yang pouted disapprovingly. He was even more displeased with Hua Xiaoheng. Of course, Gu Nianji wasn't the type of person who would shut up just because you told her to. Even if Hua Xiaoheng ordered her like this in front of her, she wouldn't listen obediently. Moreover, it was only Special Assistant Yang. Gu Nianji secretly glanced at Speaker Long, seeing that his expression was becoming more and more serious. She continued to beat him when he was down. Since Special Assistant Yang is using the Special Operations Force's temporary operation as a comparison, then let's talk about it in detail. Special Assistant Yang took a deep breath and immediately interrupted her impatiently. Is the Special Operations Force's business something you can talk about? I already said there's no need to talk anymore. Do you not understand human language? Of course I understand human language. I don't understand non-human language. Gu Nianji's expression turned cold. Speaker Long hadn't even said anything, but Special Assistant Yang had repeatedly stopped her from talking. He was really too uncultured. Gu Nianji didn't stand on ceremony with him anymore. She looked at Speaker Long and said, Speaker Long, the first day I came here, I saw the information distributed by the Senate. It said that this time the Special Operations Forces could monitor the temporary election because General G, Speaker Long, and many cabinet ministers jointly invited them. The Special Operations Forces also had permission signed by various ministers, General G and Speaker Long. So they can legally make an exception and intervene in domestic affairs, right? Speaker Long nodded and said calmly, of course. Otherwise, why would Xiaoheng accept this mission? That would be overstepping his authority and also illegal. Hua Xiaoheng would never do that. This was also the reason why Speaker Long agreed to let Hua Xiaoheng take charge of the Special Operations Forces. Because he could fully trust him. Speaker Long believed that Hua Xiaoheng wouldn't disregard the law and principles because of urgent matters. After Gu Nianji received confirmation from Speaker Long, she immediately turned to Special Assistant Yang and said sharply, But Special Assistant Yang, what about you? For such an important document you say, urgent matters. May I ask who authorized it and where? Who gave you permission to urgent matters? Or was it just you, Special Assistant Yang, who said, urgent matters and urgent matters? Matters of the Secretariat, you can let whoever you want to do it, regardless of the rules and even the wishes of Speaker Long? Special Assistant Yang, may I ask if the Secretariat of the Senate is your Secretariat or Speaker Long's Secretariat? Gu Nianji was one step away from pointing a finger at Special Assistant Yang's nose and accusing him of making Speaker Long a figurehead. Speaker Long's eyes darkened as he looked at Special Assistant Yang, who was already sweating profusely, and said calmly, Nianji has a point. We are the Senate, the legislature. If we don't act according to the laws and regulations and always urgent matters, then what's the point of having an institution like us? We should just disband as soon as possible. These words couldn't be any more harsh. Special Assistant Yang almost fainted from Speaker Long's words. He trembled as he stood up, took out a handkerchief from his trouser pocket, and kept wiping the sweat off his forehead as he stammered, Speaker Long, it's not like that. We've really been too busy. We've been up all night. Busy? Who isn't busy? Special Assistant Yang just said that I only know how to use my phone here. Can I request for the surveillance footage of this office to see how long I've been using my phone for the past 2 days? Gu Nianji sneered. Also, how can you forget your job just because you're busy? Special Assistant Yang is really good at double standards. If someone doesn't send the document for signature, then it means that they're picky about their work, unable to coordinate with their colleagues' work arrangements, and are directly trying to kick them out. When it's your turn to not send the document for signature, then it means that you're in the right because you're busy, and it's excusable for you to forget your responsibilities. In short, Special Assistant Yang is the most powerful person in the Senate Secretariat. Those who obey you will prosper, and those who oppose you will perish. You're lying. Special Assistant Yang was anxious, and he wanted to cover Gu Nianji's mouth. When did I ever say that those who obey me will prosper, and those who oppose me will perish? Don't slander me. I never say things that I don't have evidence. Gu Nianji stretched out her finger and shook it. Speaker Long is right here. Not only did I hear everything you said, but Speaker Long also heard it. Gu Nianji decided that she might as well go all the way with Special Assistant Yang. This bastard wasn't going to reconcile with her anyway, so she might as well put the conflict between them directly in front of Speaker Long. If Special Assistant Yang dared to continue making things difficult for her, she wouldn't hesitate to put it back on him and let him have a taste of what it was like to be in a pinch. Speaker Long was well aware of Special Assistant Yang's problems, but in the spirit of no one is perfect, he tolerated it all. As long as he didn't make any major mistakes, Speaker Long would just smile and not say anything. Until this time, Special Assistant Yang actually played politics even more aggressively in front of him, so it turned out that his tolerance had allowed Special Assistant Yang to do whatever he wanted in the Senate Secretariat. Speaker Long's dissatisfaction with Special Assistant Yang had finally reached a critical point, but in front of Gu Nianji, he wouldn't directly embarrass Special Assistant Yang. Raising his hand, Speaker Long said to Gu Nianji in a friendly manner, "Nianji, go out and work first. Come to my office later and we'll have a chat." "Okay, go ahead." Gu Nianji stood up and nodded to Speaker Long before turning to leave Speaker Long's office. She didn't even look at Special Assistant Yang. Special Assistant Yang watched as Gu Nianji left Speaker Long's office and the door quietly closed. Only then did he cry bitterly to Speaker Long, expressing that he was in the wrong and hoped that Speaker Long would punish him. Speaker Long looked at him and sighed slightly. "Special Assistant Yang, you've been by my side for 10 years and I don't think I've ever been a strict boss. But now it seems that I've actually harmed you by not being strict." Special Assistant Yang's heart suddenly trembled and he quickly said, "Speaker Long, it's my fault. I've let you down. You can punish me no matter how you punish me. Demotion, pay cut, I'll accept it all. As long as you let me continue to work for you, I'll even stop taking a salary." Speaker Long looked at him with pity and said, "You're really too tired. This little bit of work has already made you so exhausted that you've forgotten the most important thing. I think you should take a long break and rest first." "What?" Special Assistant Yang looked up at Speaker Long as if he had lost his parents. "How can I take a break when I'm so busy right now?" Speaker Long's expression changed slightly, and he nodded with a smile. "So I don't even have the right to ask my subordinates to take a break?" Special Assistant Yang Nianji was right. This was the first update. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, the monthly pass was increased by 1800. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the third update. Chapter 1024. Speaker Long actually agreed with Gu Nianji. In Special Assistant Yang's ears, it was like the end of the world. He looked at Speaker Long with a pitiful expression on his face. He was crying so hard that he looked like he was covered in tears. Speaker Long, you can't be like this. I've been in the Senate Secretariat for so many years, and even if I didn't make any contributions, I've worked hard. Besides, I've really been too busy this time." Special Assistant Yang usually looked rather elegant with a tall and slender figure. However, right now he looked like a toad with a broken spine. He had completely lost his usual elegant demeanor and ability to handle heavy things with ease. Speaker Long patted his shoulder sympathetically. "Don't put too much pressure on yourself. Go home and take a long vacation first. When the interim election is over and the cabinet's affairs are settled, we'll talk about your work." Special Assistant Yang heard Speaker Long's words. It seemed like he hadn't completely given up on him, and a glimmer of hope rose in his heart. He wiped his tears with a handkerchief and nodded. "I'll listen to Speaker Long and take a vacation if you want me to. But who do you want to replace my work? I can hand it over to him." Speaker Long looked at the computer and didn't want to talk anymore. "Summarize the work you're doing and give me a memo." He didn't tell him who would replace him. Special Assistant Yang's lips parted as he looked at Speaker Long several times, but Speaker Long didn't even look back. Special Assistant Yang finally left Speaker Long's office dejectedly and returned to his own office after confirming that Speaker Long was truly angry with him this time. His office was on the Secretariat floor. Although it wasn't as big as Speaker Long's office, it wasn't small either. Looking at the beautiful scenery in front of him from his office window, Special Assistant Yang gritted his teeth. He really didn't want to give up. Ever since he graduated from the B University Faculty of Law, he had been admitted to the Senate Secretariat with excellent grades. He started as a junior secretary and spent 10 years to finally climb to a position that was second only to Speaker Long. But this position wasn't secure. Although Speaker Long was very satisfied with him, he had no intention of continuing to train him. It was as if being a special assistant in the Senate Secretariat was the pinnacle of his career. For the ambitious Special Assistant Yang, this was far from enough. Therefore, when Speaker Long began to look for talents outside of the Senate system, Special Assistant Yang felt a sense of crisis. It wasn't until Kai Xingnan and Gu Nianji, the two women that Speaker Long had been full of praise for, appeared that Special Assistant Yang couldn't sit still any longer. He knew that if he didn't make a move soon and nip these two stars of hope in the bud, sooner or later these two people would become his strongest competitors, and it was very likely that they would replace him. Between Kai Xingnan and Gu Nianji, Special Assistant Yang had always thought that Gu Nianji was a pushover, so he decided to subdue Gu Nianji first. He didn't expect that all his plans would fail at the last moment, and he would fall at the hands of Gu Nianji. Special Assistant Yang's face darkened as he packed his briefcase in his office. He then summarized the work at hand, wrote a memo to Speaker Long, and sent it to Speaker Long's email. Only then did he come out with his briefcase and say to his confidants, "I'm not feeling well, so I've applied for leave to rest for a few days. You guys have to work hard. Don't slack off when I'm not around." "How could that be?" "Don't worry, Special Assistant Yang. We will do our best." "Special Assistant Yang, you've worked hard. If you're not feeling well, go see a doctor." His colleagues greeted Special Assistant Yang and saw him out. Special Assistant Yang knew that Speaker Long would save him some face and not reveal the real reason why he was on leave. However, Gu Nianji would definitely gossip about him among his colleagues. Because putting himself in their shoes, if Gu Nianji was on leave, Special Assistant Yang himself wouldn't let go of this opportunity to smear her name. Working in the Senate Secretariat, it was necessary to have this kind of judgment. If others didn't come down, then you couldn't go up. If you had the opportunity to step on others a few times, then you had to step on them as hard as you could. Don't step on them until they were half dead. When the other party recovered, they would be able to step on you to death. Special Assistant Yang knew this very well. This time he didn't manage to step on Gu Nianji to death. Instead, he suffered the backlash. As he walked past the small office area where Gu Nianji was sitting, Special Assistant Yang purposely stopped in his tracks and smiled at her. "Miss Gu, let me give you a piece of advice out of friendship. Life is full of ups and downs. There will always be ups and downs in life. No one will always be lucky and no one will always be unlucky." Gu Nianji had spoken too much to Speaker Long and Special Assistant Yang with her mask on today. Although the inner layer of the mask was a very soft cotton layer, it was still too rough compared to Gu Nianji's skin. As a result, the area around her curvy lips was burning from being rubbed against. She had gone to the bathroom after leaving Speaker Long's office. She took off her mask and took out a small makeup mirror to look at herself. She discovered that the skin around her lips was red, forming a stark contrast with her fair cheeks. It looked ugly and scary. When Special Assistant Yang walked over with his briefcase, she didn't want to acknowledge him at all, let alone speak. That was because her face would hurt if she spoke. However, she didn't expect Special Assistant Yang to still not let her off the hook. He even gave her a parting message. Gu Nianji's eyes almost rolled to the back of her head. She endured the discomfort on her lips and said calmly, "Special Assistant Yang, you should keep those words to yourself. Don't only shine on others but not on yourself. I have no grudges against you in the past or in the present. I'm also very annoyed that you're always targeting me." Special Assistant Yang was annoyed by Gu Nianji's rebuttal. He sneered and said, "It's fine if you don't want to listen. I'm just being a busybody. Some people don't appreciate it." Gu Nianji thought to herself, "I don't know if I should say something." The two of them glared at each other and refused to give in to each other. Rong Mingxing, the intern that Special Assistant Yang had recruited, walked over and said timidly, "Special Assistant Yang?" Gu Nianji quickly waved her hand and turned to look at the two large LCD screens in front of her to indicate that she was very busy and couldn't talk anymore. Special Assistant Yang snorted coldly and took Rong Mingxing to the small reception room outside. "Senior Yang, are you sick? Is it serious? Is there someone to take care of you when you go back?" Rong Mingxing saw that it was only the two of them, so she changed the way she addressed him to show that they were close. Special Assistant Yang's attitude towards Rong Mingxing was much better than his attitude towards Gu Nianji. He smiled and said, "I just have a slight fever. I'll be fine after a few days of rest. Don't worry, Junior." Special Assistant Yang said goodbye to Rong Mingxing in the small conference room while Hua Xiaoheng was reviewing the tracking chip data of Hong Kongquan in the central control room of the headquarters of the Special Operations Forces. Looking at the data, Hua Xiaoheng was very puzzled. Because the tracking chip data showed that Hong Kongquan had been at home the whole night and hadn't left the house at all. So who were his subordinates following last night? Could they have been following the wrong person? That shouldn't be the case. The two staff members of the Special Operations Forces had used pinhole cameras to record Hong Kongquan's entire journey. They had clearly seen him leave the apartment complex where he lived and take a taxi to a gay bar. The person shown on the video was Hong Kongquan himself. But why did the tracking chip data show different from what everyone saw with the naked eye? Xiaoheng rested his chin on his hand and fell into deep thought. At the same time, in an apartment near the Sihuan subway station, the police were investigating Lu Daiyong's death. The landlord who had rented the apartment to Lu Daiyong regretted it so much that he cried and yelled at the police that Lu Daiyong's death had nothing to do with him. Also, his apartment had been completely destroyed by the fire and it would cost a lot of money just to redecorate it. Also, the fire had destroyed his neighbor's house. He was also facing compensation and was very troubled. The police didn't care about these compensation matters. Their focus was on Lu Daiyong's death the night before. After interrogating the landlord, the police began to question Lu Daiyong's neighbor. With this question he managed to get some interesting information. "Mr. Police, something did happen last night? Someone was looking for Lu Daiyong, and the two of them got into an argument. The whole floor heard it." Yes. I even opened the door to take a look. It was a loan shark. He was tall and strong and his voice was like thunder. It was so scary. This was the second update, and the monthly ticket of 1,800 plus updates had been sent ahead of time. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the third update would be sent. If the monthly ticket was 2,100 today, the fourth update would be sent. See you tomorrow. Chapter 1025. Lu Daiyong quarreled with someone last night? The police were very interested in this information. Although the preliminary investigation showed that Lu Daiyong jumped to his death, they still had to figure out why he chose to commit suicide. Yes, it was a very loud argument. Later he saw us come out and pulled the man into the house. Yes, he was here to collect debts. We've seen a lot of these usury collectors and they're all like him. The police questioned and collected evidence, and finally went to the one-bedroom room where Lu Daiyong had lived before his death to investigate. Unfortunately, the place was completely burned, especially the computer, which was burned to the point where only the shell was left. In the end, the police only took the burned hard drive, which was the only thing taken from the scene of the fire. They then investigated the window where Lu Daiyong had fallen and found evidence that he had climbed out of the window and fallen from the windowsill. There was a little bit of paper ash on the windowsill, which should be traces of the fire. From these witnesses and physical evidence, the police's preliminary judgment was that Lu Daiyong was chased by the loan sharks and finally jumped to his death. But it might not be completely correct and there were still some doubts. For example, who set the fire? If it was Lu Daiyong himself, it could be understood that he had nothing left to live for, so he set the fire to vent his anger before committing suicide. But if it wasn't Lu Daiyong who set the fire, but the loan sharks, then Lu Daiyong's death would be suspicious. The person who set the fire must have done it to cover up the real evidence. But if the loan sharks were Lu Daiyong's murderer, it wouldn't make sense. Because the loan sharks were after money, and if they killed Lu Daiyong, who would pay his debts? From this perspective, Lu Daiyong seemed closer to suicide. Of course, these were the preliminary stages of the police's verification. More evidence was needed to close the case, especially the recovery of the data on Lu Daiyong's computer hard drive, which would also be an important piece of evidence. Lu Daiyong's body had been sent to the funeral home for preservation, and his family was also notified to come and claim it. The police's work was carried out in an orderly manner. Special Assistant Yang left the Senate building and went home for vacation. Speaker Long asked someone to call Gu Nianji to his office to talk. This time it was only her and Speaker Long. Without Special Assistant Yang, who always had malicious intentions towards her, Gu Nianji felt much more comfortable. She even borrowed Speaker Long's tea set and took the initiative to brew a cup of tea for Speaker Long. Speaker Long finished the tea in the small teacup in one gulp. "Nianji, I didn't expect you to be so good at making tea." Speaker Long smiled as he handed the teacup back to her. "Can I have another cup?" The aftertaste was sweet and fragrant, overflowing with fresh air. Good tea. Good tea." Gu Nianji smiled. "These are all your tea leaves. I'm just trying to present them to Buddha with borrowed flowers." "Nianji, you're too kind. There are many things that you can do but we can't." Speaker Long sincerely apologized to Gu Nianji. "I'm sorry to have embarrassed myself this time. Our Senate Secretariat wasn't like this before." "I know." Gu Nianji nodded with a smile. "There are all kinds of birds in a big forest. I'm mentally prepared. You can't be blamed for this. We didn't do our job well and made you suffer." Speaker Long patted Gu Nianji's shoulder and treated her like a junior. "Fortunately, I usually don't feel wronged because I always retaliate on the spot. If we're talking about suffering, that person just now was even more wronged than I was." Gu Nianji was talking about Special Assistant Yang. Gu Nianji was secretly pleased to see him speechless at Gu Nianji's words. Speaker Long smiled and nodded. Nianji, I like it when you speak your mind like this. Keep it up. Okay, I'll speak my mind. Speaker Long, please don't mind me talking too much in the future. Gu Nianji laughed. Speaker Long also laughed for a while before asking Gu Nianji, Nianji, Special Assistant Yang won't be back for a while. Who do you think will be responsible for the Senate Secretariat in the future? Gu Nianji looked at Speaker Long in shock. The black and white panda mask covered most of her face, only showing her bright eyes that shone like stars. Speaker Long narrowed his eyes. Don't you have any ideas? I was going to hand the Secretariat over to you, but I'm afraid there will be too many things to do. If you work around the clock, Huashao might not be happy. Gu Nianji was speechless. She didn't want people to continue thinking that all of her achievements were related to Huashao, so she could only sigh. Huashao won't think that way. After all, we're no longer together. However, I just graduated. Don't you think it's too rash to hand over the Secretariat to me? Don't you have confidence? Speaker Long asked meaningfully. When Special Assistant Yang first started working for me, he had only just graduated. This isn't a matter of confidence. Gu Nianji shook her head. This job requires qualifications and experience. I know I'm far from qualified in this area. Besides, my interest is in the law. I can work as a legal consultant in the Secretariat, but I'm not ready to be a full-time assistant. Hearing Gu Nianji's refusal, Speaker Long didn't get angry. Instead, he laughed heartily. Okay, I got it. Nianji, you can leave first. It's a bit hard for you to be in charge of the Secretariat right now. Speaker Long said with a smile and dismissed Gu Nianji. He then called in another senior secretary to temporarily replace Special Assistant Yang. There were plenty of people in the Secretariat, and they weren't any less qualified than Special Assistant Yang. Gu Nianji didn't accept the job hastily, which made Speaker Long think even more highly of her. She was capable and knew her limits. This was especially rare. Gu Nianji didn't know she had passed another test from Speaker Long, but perhaps she knew and didn't care. After all, she didn't come to the internship this time to fight for power. She had another goal. She had already achieved her goal. Now she just had to see how Kai Songyin would react. Speaking of which, Kai Songyin hadn't done anything for the past 2 days. This didn't make sense. Gu Nianji was thinking about this when she realized that, speak of the devil. Of course, it wasn't the main character. It was Cao Cao's think tank, Kai Songyin's niece, Madame Kai Xingnan. Kai Xingnan had been in the Senate for more than a month because of Prime Minister Tan's impeachment case. She was very familiar with everyone there. She was also one of the people that Speaker Long had publicly expressed his appreciation for. She also had a pass to enter and exit the Senate, so she could come here without any obstructions. She walked straight to Gu Nianji and stopped beside her. Kai Xingnan crossed her arms and tilted her head to look at Gu Nianji. She suddenly said, Miss Gu, it's actually a very bad habit to insist on working when you're injured. Gu Nianji heard Kai Xingnan's voice and couldn't help but laugh. She had just been wondering why Kai Songyin hadn't done anything yet. Now she was about to make a move? Gu Nianji calmly turned off the display. She stood up and turned around to face Kai Xingnan. Miss Kai, may I ask what business you have with me? Please call me Lawyer Kai. Don't use Miss to humiliate me. Kai Xingnan pouted. She looked at Gu Nianji's face with the mask on. It was an eyesore. She suddenly reached out and pulled the mask off Gu Nianji's face. She asked with a smile, Miss Gu, did your face really get hurt? Kai Xingnan had trained her strength. Gu Nianji felt like her ear was about to be torn off. The mask was pulled off, revealing Gu Nianji's face. Although it wasn't as swollen as it looked on the video, it was still excessively red and swollen. You're really hurt, Kai Xingnan muttered to herself. The condition of Gu Nianji's face was actually because she had spoken too much with the mask on. It was red and swollen from being rubbed and it still hurt. But no matter what, it was her business whether she was injured or not. Gu Nianji was furious that Kai Xingnan had ripped off her mask and exposed her embarrassing wound. Moreover, her ear was burning with pain as if it had been torn apart by Kai Xingnan. Gu Nianji didn't hesitate. The moment Kai Xingnan pulled off her mask, she slapped her. Kai Xingnan covered her face in disbelief and looked at Gu Nianji. You hit me? Yes, I hit you. I was defending myself, Lawyer Kai. What misunderstanding do you have about self-defense? Gu Nianji said confidently and waved her hand. Your face is so strong. My hand hurts when I hit your face. It was the third watch. asking for monthly votes at the beginning of the month. Chapter 1026. Gu Nianji's hand was broken. Besides, she had practiced with Hua Xiaoheng a few times, so the slap really hurt a lot. Kai Xingnan's tears instantly burst out of her eyes. She wasn't crying because of the pain, but because Gu Nianji's slap had hit the tear ducts near the bridge of her nose. Her nose was sore and tears naturally flowed out. Gu Nianji was stunned and looked at her hand in surprise. "Does it hurt that much? Lawyer Kai, you almost ripped my ear off, but I didn't even cry. I slapped you and you're crying." Kai Xingnan also felt embarrassed that she was crying in front of Gu Nianji. She quickly wiped away her tears and said stubbornly, "It's a natural stress reaction. Don't you know? Also, don't use self-defense to obscure the fact that you hit someone. You can threaten to sue Mr. Chow because of an unintentional action, and I can also sue you because of this slap. Sue, I'll keep you company." Gu Nianji rubbed her ear and carefully put the mask that Kai Xingnan had pulled off. Kai Xingnan thought about how red and swollen Gu Nianji's face looked and felt a little strange. Why did her aunt ask her to confirm whether Gu Nianji was injured first? She was clearly injured. Kai Xingnan had seen it on TV 2 days ago. Today, seeing it up close, it was even more serious. Her delicate skin was torn and red and swollen. Kai Xingnan's eyes flickered and she said to Gu Nianji, "Fine, wait for my lawyer's letter." "Same here." Gu Nianji said calmly, "Don't forget, I'm also a lawyer." Kai Xingnan pointed at Gu Nianji, then turned around and left angrily. The people from the secretariat finally gathered around and asked regretfully, "Little Gu, are you okay? Do you want to go back and rest? The wound on your face seems to have gotten worse. It wouldn't be good for a beautiful girl to be disfigured because of this." Gu Nianji wasn't in the mood to continue working. She packed her bag, asked for leave from the new person in charge of the secretariat, and left the work area of the secretariat. She first went to the temporary command room of the Special Operations Forces to see Hua Xiaoheng. However, when she arrived, she realized that Hua Xiaoheng wasn't there today. Only Yin Shixiang was there, leading the members of the Special Operations Forces to carry out the final preparations before the election. "Nianji, did Kai Xingnan do anything to you just now?" Yin Shixiang asked with concern as he pointed at the dozen or so surveillance screens in front of him. "I saw it when she pulled off your mask." Although Yin Shixiang had also seen Gu Nianji slap Kai Xingnan, he didn't think there was anything wrong with it. As far as he was concerned, Kai Xingnan had made the first move. The first person to provoke her was despicable and deserved to be beaten to death. Gu Nianji touched her ear and felt it still hurt. She mumbled, "This woman acted like she was having a seizure. She suddenly pulled my mask and almost pulled my ear off. Brother Xiong, look, is my ear okay?" Gu Nianji tilted her head to let him look at her ear. Yin Shixiang took a closer look and found that it was really a little torn. There was even a trace of blood on the tip of the ear. Motherf asterisk her. What's more, he was a famous lawyer from the United States. That's how she is. Yin Shixiang cursed as he carried the first aid kit over. He took out cotton swabs and ointment to apply to Gu Nianji's ear. "That's not surprising." Gu Nianji gasped and hissed. "Don't think that American lawyers are all high and mighty. Other than members of Congress, the people Americans hate the most are lawyers. In this line of work, if you don't have a bottom line, it's easy to lose any sense of morality. As long as they can escape justice, they can do anything." Yin Shixiang chuckled and put away the first aid kit. "Nianji, you can't become that kind of person. Otherwise, Brother Xiong won't acknowledge you as his sister." "Of course I won't. There are good people among lawyers and I'm one of them," Gu Nianji said with a smile. After applying medicine to her ear, she felt much more comfortable. She looked around and asked quietly, "Brother Xiong, where's Hua Xiao?" She didn't rashly call Hua Xiaoheng because this was a critical time. She didn't want to cause trouble for him or herself. If he went on a mission again, then she couldn't contact him. Yin Shixiang hadn't heard Gu Nianji actively ask about Hua Xiaoheng in a long time. He quickly smiled and said, "Hua Xiao went back to work at the base. I'm in charge here. Alright, I have something to deliver to the base. Can you deliver it to Hua Xiao for me?" Actually, Yin Shixiang had something to deliver. Why would he need Gu Nianji to deliver it? He only said this to give Gu Nianji a reason to go to the base to find Hua Xiaoheng. Gu Nianji smiled embarrassedly and took the paper bag from Yin Shixiang. She said, "I just happen to be free." Yin Shixiang smiled as he watched Gu Nianji leave the Senate building. He quickly called Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao. Speak." Hua Xiaoheng kept typing commands on the computer. Yin Shixiang quickly said, Huo Kai Xing'an just came to the Senate building to look for Nianji. The two of them had a little conflict. Nianji is now at the base looking for you. Huo Xiaoheng was in the central control room of the headquarters, researching the problem of Hong Kongquan's tracking chip. They had already begun monitoring Hong Kongquan. So far, Hong Kongquan hadn't shown any signs of abnormality. Huo Xiaoheng was even beginning to doubt whether Tangairen's words could be trusted. Was the person behind Kai Songyin's ideas really Hong Kongquan? When he heard that Kai Xing'an and Gu Nianji had a conflict, Huo Xiaoheng's fingers stopped moving. He put on his Bluetooth headset and stood up from the computer. A conflict? What conflict? Kai Xing'an ripped off Nianji's mask and tore her ear. Nianji slapped her. Yin Shixiang smiled wickedly when he said the last sentence. Huo Xiaoheng frowned. Why did she rip off Nianji's mask? Who knows? Maybe it was because she didn't like it. That mask was shockingly ugly. Huo Xiao. Why did you give her a mask like that? Yin Shixiang slammed the table. Panda colors are cute and cute on pandas, but they're scary on people's faces. Let me tell you. Huo Xiaoheng ignored him. The mask was specially made by Chen Lai, so Yin Shixiang didn't need to know the reason. Is there anything else? If not, I'm hanging up. Huo Xiaoheng hung up the phone and worked for another half an hour. He did some simple finishing touches before taking out a cigarette from his trouser pocket. He walked out of the central control room and returned to his official residence. He didn't go in. He only smoked quietly under the tree at the entrance. The weather in the imperial capital was sunny in spring. The leaves were green and the breeze was gentle. The guards at the entrance couldn't help but stand even straighter. Huo Xiaoheng didn't have to wait long before he saw Gu Nianji's little red sports car drive over. He narrowed his eyes and casually threw the cigarette into the trash can in the corner. Gu Nianji parked the car in the parking lot at the entrance of Huo Xiaoheng's official residence. As soon as she got out, she saw Huo Xiaoheng standing at the entrance and quietly looking at her. Huo Xiao. Gu Nianji walked over with a paper bag that Yin Shixiang had given her. Brother Xiong asked me to bring this to you. Huo Xiaoheng took the paper bag and his gaze fell on Gu Nianji's oiled ear. He moved closer to brush her hair aside and carefully looked at the wound on her ear. Does it hurt? Gu Nianji nodded. It hurts a lot. But it's much better now. Huo Xiaoheng took her hand and took her directly to Chen Lai's medical building. Chen Lai saw Gu Nianji walk in wearing a black and white panda mask and grinned wickedly. Nianji, what's wrong? Is the wound uncomfortable? He winked at Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji undid her mask angrily and said, The old wound is healed, but there's a new one. Brother Chen, look at my face. It's like this just because I said a few more words today. And my ear. Huo Xiaoheng said dryly from behind, Let Nianji look at your ear first. It's torn. Chen Lai's smile disappeared instantly. Torn? Who tore your ear? Who the hell had the guts to do that? Gu Nianji's heart warmed. She had been bullied at the Senate, but when she returned to the Special Operations Forces, everyone cared about her. She moved closer to Chen Lai and pointed to her ear. Right here. When Kai Xing'an tore off my mask, it tore. Kai Xing'an tore off your mask. How dare she? Chen Lai was even more shocked. He exchanged a fearful look with Huo Xiaoheng and quickly murmured. That was too dangerous. This was the first night watch. There were 2 night watches today. What about the monthly votes of the relatives? Did they have any? At 7 p.m. the second night watch. Chapter 1027. Gu Nianji pouted. How would I know she would suddenly attack? But I reacted quickly and gave her a backhand slap. Good job. Chen Lai took a gauze and began to clean Gu Nianji's ear wound again. He said indignantly, I'll give you a medical certificate. Sue her for bodily injury. Gu Nianji giggled and said, Sure. Kai Xing'an even said she would sue me for slapping her. Then sue her. Who's afraid of who? Chen Lai's technique was much better than Yin Shixiang's. He quickly applied a better ointment to Gu Nianji's ear. Go home and rest for 2 days. Don't go to work at the Senate. Yeah, I want to rest. Gu Nianji nodded. She had already achieved her main goal of going to the Senate. If Speaker Long needed her help, she would naturally go. But now that the preparations for the Senate's interim general election were almost complete, it didn't matter whether she went or not. Chen Lai finished applying ointment to her ear and looked at her face, especially around her lips. He gave her a bottle of jelly-like ointment. Since you're not going to the Senate, you don't need to wear a mask. Take this and apply it to the uncomfortable areas on your face. You'll be fine in 2 days. Gu Nianji took it. Thank you, Brother Qin. But when she turned around and saw Hua Xiaoheng calmly standing by the window, Gu Nianji instinctively wanted to put on her mask again. She was too unsightly right now and she didn't want Hua Xiaoheng to see it. Hua Xiaoheng walked over and said to Qin Lai, "Help her change her mask. Wear it when you go out." Qin Lai changed Gu Nianji's mask into a nicer one. The inner layer was thinner and softer than the black and white panda mask. Gu Nianji immediately felt much more comfortable after putting on the mask. She didn't feel embarrassed anymore. She happily said to Qin Lai, "Thank you, Brother Qin," and followed Hua Xiaoheng out of Qin Lai's medical building. Returning to Hua Xiaoheng's official residence, Gu Nianji found an opportunity when no one was around to ask Hua Xiaoheng, "Hua Xiao, is that document very important? Did it affect you at all by delaying the signing?" Hua Xiaoheng didn't think it would be a big problem, especially after he checked the data on Hong Kongquan's tracking chip. His intuition told him that even if he fully monitored Hong Kongquan, the results would be the same. He had long realized that Hong Kongquan was very familiar with their workflow, and he was also an expert in it. He was Hua Xiaoheng's superior and had taught Hua Xiaoheng many things. Although he was discharged from the army, his work was of the same nature as that which he had done in the army. If there really was something wrong with Hong Kongquan, it would not have been so easy for them to find out. Moreover, Hong Kongquan was a minister, so if they wanted to investigate him, they would face even more obstacles. Up until now, the only flaw Hong Kongquan had exposed was Kai Songyin. That was really a flaw. He pulled Gu Nianji to sit on the sofa in the corner and said calmly, "There are some obstacles, but it's not that big of a problem. You don't have to worry." "Really?" Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief. "I was just afraid of delaying your plans. Although I'm not responsible for this, it's because of me." If she hadn't been in the Senate Secretariat, Special Assistant Yang wouldn't have come up with such an evil plan to deal with her and implicate this document. "You're overthinking it." Hua Xiaoheng didn't think much of it. Special Assistant Yang was the one who had bad intentions. "It has nothing to do with you." Yin Shixiang had personally told him to deliver the important document as soon as possible. How could Special Assistant Yang still lie through his teeth and be negligent? Who else could he blame? Moreover, the Senate was best at wrangling. They could go on and on about trivial matters. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to understand their supreme authority. Hua Xiaoheng knew that Gu Nianji had zero experience in this area. She still needed to experience it herself in order to get a direct impression of working in the Senate. One could be born with IQ but not EQ. Letting go of her guilt, Gu Nianji let out a long sigh. "That's good. I also said that if I really messed things up, I would ask for your forgiveness." Hua Xiaoheng suddenly felt that he had comforted Gu Nianji too early. However, it was too late for regrets now. Gu Nianji could no longer ask for forgiveness from him. "Then stay here for 2 days. Hua Xiaoheng patted her head. "You can leave after you've recovered." He didn't want the people from the Kai family to cause trouble again. Kai Xingnan's actions today made Hua Xiaoheng very cautious. What kind of person would pay attention to the wound on Gu Nianji's face? Or would they be concerned about the healing of her wound? Monitoring Hong Kongquan required so many procedures, but monitoring Kai Xingnan didn't. That was because Kai Xingnan was under Hua Xiaoheng's jurisdiction. She was an overseas Chinese and had only returned to the Huaxia Empire for 3 months. "Okay, go to your work. Don't worry about me." Gu Nianji stretched and planned to take a nap. She had been nervous the past 2 days outside and hadn't slept well at night. Gu Nianji quickly fell asleep when she returned to this familiar place. After Gu Nianji fell asleep, Hua Xiaoheng assigned a new task to monitor Kai Xingnan. Gu Nianji woke up and discovered that it was already past 6 in the evening. It was time for dinner. Her stomach was growling with hunger. She hadn't eaten for an entire day. She got up and went to the bathroom to freshen up. Looking in the mirror, she discovered that her face was much better. She hadn't worn a mask for the entire afternoon, so there were no longer any red or swollen areas on her face. There were only a few red marks indicating that she had been injured. Looking at the tear on her ear, it had healed well. Gu Nianji applied the green jelly-like ointment that Qin Lai had given her and took her phone downstairs for dinner. She was the only one in the dining room. Hua Xiaoheng was in the office building and hadn't returned. Yin Shixiang was in the Senate building and couldn't return. Zhao Liangzi was on an island in the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. Gu Nianji sat alone in the empty dining room and missed the laughter of the past. No one accompanied her for dinner, so she scrolled through her phone as she ate. Gu Nianji hadn't been on Weibo for a few days. She logged onto her secondary account and began to browse the hot news. Suddenly, she discovered that the original blogger she had followed using her secondary account had been tagged by the police officer. What happened? Gu Nianji clicked on it and discovered that it was an obituary. So the original blogger's real name was Lu Daong, and he committed suicide by jumping off a building to avoid loan sharks last night. What was going on? Gu Nianji was confused for a moment. As far as she knew, this blogger was definitely not someone who would commit suicide. Even when he was being sued by the Prime Minister and his wife, he didn't consider jumping off a building. Why would he commit suicide after being chased by loan sharks? Also, Gu Nianji remembered that this blogger had made a small fortune because he had accepted Kai Songin's brief outline. Why did he need to borrow from loan sharks? He didn't have a wife or children, and he didn't even have a house to repay the loan. Why would he borrow so much from them? The more Gu Nianji thought about it, the more suspicious she became. She reread the contents of the police's official blog. It turned out that a residential building fire had occurred in an apartment complex near the Sihuan subway station in the imperial capital yesterday. It was the original blogger's rented room. Then the blogger was found dead on the sidewalk downstairs. The medical examiner proved that the person named Lu Daong had committed suicide by jumping off a building. The police only found a heavily damaged hard drive from the man's burned home. After recovering the data, they discovered some of Lu Daong's online accounts. The most important one was this Weibo account, Churchill's Garden. This was also his only source of income. Jumping off a building to commit suicide, why did he have to burn down his home? Gu Nianji muttered to herself. Her slender fingers tapped on the phone screen twice. Under the police station's official Weibo post, there seemed to be comments from Lu Daong's neighbors. They all said that they had heard the loan sharks come to collect the debt last night, and that the two were arguing so loudly that the entire floor could hear them. Gu Nianji was a lawyer. Her professional habits kicked in when she saw the Weibo post. She began to make deductions. Loan sharks chasing after debts. In order to avoid being chased by loan sharks, he jumped off a building to commit suicide. This chain of evidence was logical. But why would he set fire to his home? That didn't make any sense. Did he set the fire himself? Or did someone else set the fire? If someone else set the fire, then it made even less sense for the person to commit suicide. Gu Nianji couldn't help but think of the Prime Minister's wife, Kai Songyin, who had a history with this Weibo blogger. Kai Songyin had threatened to sue this Weibo blogger and intentionally forced him to spill the beans about the short essay. Now that the blogger was dead, how could Kai Songyin stir up trouble? Gu Nianji thought of that and immediately remembered the text she had sent to Kai Songyin, as well as Tangairen's audio recording. When she sent the text, the IP address was heavily disguised, and the tone of her voice was that of the original blogger. No matter who saw that text, they would think that the original blogger had hired help. She still remembered the content of the text. Mrs. Tan, if you insist on suing the original blogger, your daughter's imprisonment play will soon go viral. Gu Nianji stood up uneasily and paced back and forth in the dining room. She didn't know if she was overthinking it, but she couldn't rule out the possibility that the original blogger had lost his life because of this message. It was the second watch. The monthly votes were almost in the Major General's hands. Chapter 1028. As far as Gu Nianji was concerned, she felt that she knew the blogger better than the police. Although the police had obtained the hard drive, it had already been reformatted by Gu Nianji. There was much less content on the hard drive than before. Therefore, the police had no other clues other than knowing that Lu Daong was the real identity of the blogger, Churchill's Garden. Based on Gu Nianji's understanding of the blogger, a loan shark alone would be enough to make the blogger, Churchill's Garden, who dared to take on the First Lady's case and actively defame the Major General of the Army, commit suicide? Wasn't this an insult to her intelligence? The more Gu Nianji thought about it, the more she was inclined to believe that the blogger hadn't committed suicide, but rather had been killed. So who was the one who did it? From what she knew, Gu Nianji felt that Kai Songyin was the most likely culprit. Not for anything else but for her daughter, Tangairen. She loved her daughter so much, so of course she didn't want anyone else to know the details of her daughter's kidnapping in the United States, especially since she believed that the blogger had her daughter's audio recording, which was more powerful than any scandalous gossip. However, Gu Nianji had to admit that no matter how smart she was, she never expected Kai Songyin to be willing to kill someone for her daughter. She had originally thought that Kai Songyin would at most give up on the blogger and give up on the idea of suing him in court because of this evidence. That way Hua Xiaoheng's reputation would be preserved because the blogger wouldn't be forced into desperation and expose the fact that Kai Songyin had asked him to write an article to defame her. She never expected Kai Songyin to directly send an assassin to finish off the original blogger, Churchill's Garden, who was also the victim announced by the police as Liu Daong. If she hadn't guessed wrong, the lone shark the neighbors were so sure about was the murderer. Gu Nianji didn't even bother eating dinner when she thought about this and quickly dialed Hua Xiaoheng's number. She waited for 5 minutes before Hua Xiaoheng's call connected. Nianji, what's up? Hua Xiaoheng was reading the test report in his office. That morning, he had used some of his authority to send people to conduct a spot check on the Secret Service, citing the need for strict security for the interim election. The focus of the check was the tracking chip installed on their bodies. This check was a regular schedule with 2 spot checks per year and a spot check at any time depending on the situation. Hua Xiaoheng was doing a spot check this time. Because it was a spot check, there was almost no chance to tamper. The Secret Service's tracking chip was installed one way. In other words, once it was taken out, it would be useless to put it back. Unless he changed his identity, he would need to install a new positioning chip. This was also why, for the people of the Secret Service, only when they completely resigned from the Secret Service or died could they retrieve the tracking chip. The test report in front of Hua Xiaoheng showed that not only were the tracking chips all over Hong Kang's body still in their original positions, but they were also intact. While looking at him, Hua Xiaoheng as he is I. As he is he said, as he is he said. As I told, as he is as she. As he is he. As he looked at. I Hua, Gu as I said. As I Hua Gu. Hua. As I asked. Hua. Gu. As I Gu. As I said. Okay. Hua Xiaoheng's voice softened. Wait for me. Hua Xiaoheng's steps were more urgent than ever as he walked out of the office. He quickly returned to his official residence. He didn't have time to go back to his room to change, so he walked into the dining room in a dark green military uniform. The dining room was spacious. Under the bright chandelier, there was a slender girl sitting quietly at the rectangular wooden dining table. She rested her chin on her hand. From where he sat, he could clearly see her silhouette. It was as if she had walked out from the bottom of his heart. Gu Nianji felt someone looking at her. She looked up to see Hua Xiaoheng in his military uniform standing at the dining room's entrance. She smiled and stood up. You're back so fast. Yeah. Hua Xiaoheng composed himself and walked to the seat across from her. Soon after, the orderlies brought Hua Xiaoheng his dinner and respectfully placed it on the table in front of him. Hua Xiaoheng nodded to Gu Nianji and started eating. He was very quiet when he ate at home. He didn't talk while eating. He had always taught Gu Nianji this. The dining room was still quiet. Only the sound of chopsticks or knives and forks hitting plates could be heard. However, Gu Nianji didn't feel so lonely anymore. After dinner, they left the dining room and went to the second floor where they lived. In the long hallway, Gu Nianji's suite was on the left and Hua Xiaoheng's suite was on the right. Their doors were almost facing each other. Hua Xiaoheng asked her, "Do you want to go to your room or mine?" Gu Nianji hesitated. Thinking that Hua Xiaoheng's room had better security, she pointed to his door. "Let's talk in your room." Hua Xiaoheng smiled. He turned around and pressed his palm on the door's sensor to open the door. They walked in and the door closed automatically. Gu Nianji stopped and looked up at the living room of Hua Xiaoheng's suite. It was a place she hadn't set foot in since she went to Germany. However, after so much time had passed, this place hadn't changed at all. It still had black curtains, milky white walls, brown walnut solid wood flooring, and a corner sofa with strong lines. There was even a doll on the small table in the corner of the room. It was the one Gu Nianji had hugged when she was young. "Why are you standing? Come and sit." Hua Xiaoheng sat down on the sofa in the corner and waved for her to come over. Gu Nianji snapped back to reality. Her eyes fluttered over the doll as she sat down next to Hua Xiaoheng. She didn't purposely pull away from him. Hua Xiaoheng curled his lips and put one hand on the back of the sofa behind Gu Nianji. He asked, "Tell me, what is it?" Gu Nianji took out her phone and opened the text she had sent to Kai Songyin. She passed it to Hua Xiaoheng. "Hua Xiao, do you remember what I told you?" Hua Xiaoheng didn't take her phone. He only looked down at her hand and nodded. "What is it? Kai Songyin knows you sent it?" "So what if she knows?" Hua Xiaoheng didn't care at all. Tan Dongbang and Kai Songyin were busy with the interim elections and didn't have time to think about anything else. He didn't expect Gu Nianji to shake her head and say with some difficulty, "No, she doesn't know I sent it." Hua Xiaoheng looked at her. Since she didn't know it was her, why was she looking so troubled? She thought it was the original blogger who sent it, Gun Yanji said quietly. She opened Weibo again and showed Hua Xiaoheng the content of the blogger, Churchill's Garden, being tagged by the police officer. And this blogger was found to have committed suicide by jumping off a building last night. Hua Xiaoheng's expression didn't change at all. He quickly glanced at the content displayed on Gun Yanji's phone and quickly grasped the main point. You mean Kai Songyin sent people to get rid of this blogger? What the hell? Gun Yanji almost kneeled in front of Hua Xiaoheng again. He was able to understand the content she had spent half an hour to figure out with just one look. Gun Yanji looked up at Hua Xiaoheng and said quietly, Hua Xiao, even if I wasn't your girlfriend and was just a normal citizen, I would still be very happy that our country has a soldier like you. He was strong enough to intimidate his enemies, smart enough to understand the meaning of a song, able to see the big picture without bothering about the details, and principled without being rigid. If she wasn't his girlfriend, Gun Yanji wouldn't be able to find any faults with him. Hua Xiaoheng's hand moved down from the back of the sofa to rest on the back of her neck. He kissed her lips. Welcome home, my little darling. She was like a lost child who had finally found her way home after being lost for a short while. She wouldn't know the value of possession if she had never lost it. Similarly, she could only rely on herself to find her way home so she wouldn't be lost again. Although Gun Yanji was only 19 years old, she had experienced more than many 29-year-olds. This kind of experience, coupled with her shocking intelligence, allowed her to quickly mature. Maturity meant that she could see the truth behind the superficial, learn to make choices, and know how to compromise. Gun Yanji no longer felt inferior and helpless about her and Hua Xiaoheng's future. Her repeated confrontations with those people made her gradually understand that if she wasn't worthy of being with Hua Xiaoheng, then who was? Gun Yanji also leaned over to kiss Hua Xiaoheng. Thank you for waiting for me to come home. When cracks appeared in their relationship, if Hua Xiaoheng hadn't persevered, they wouldn't have had the chance to turn things around now. This was the so-called relationship between two people. Only one party's dedication would not last long. Hua Xiaoheng patted her back. It's good that you're back. He quickly followed up with a question. When do you plan on announcing our marriage? Gun Yanji was speechless. She sat up straight and ran her hand through her hair. Her gaze shifted to the hanging black curtains as she intentionally changed the subject. We'll talk about our matters later. Right now, let's talk about Kai Songyin and this Weibo blogger. Hua Xiaoheng smiled and didn't force her. He also changed the subject. If this matter really has something to do with Kai Songyin, then it's not just a normal case of defamation and defamation. Yes. Gun Yanji was especially spirited when it came to her profession. This is murder. If it was really Kai Songyin who ordered it, then we definitely can't let her go. But what should we do to find clues? Hua Xiaoheng took her phone and read the entire news again. Gun Yanji said in distress, I really didn't expect Kai Songyin to be so crazy. She's as despicable as she can be to threaten and defame others. I only showed the slightest intention of threatening and defaming her daughter, and she immediately tried to kill me. This is the first update. Today is the third update. Asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Today is Monday, especially for recommendation votes. At 1 o'clock in the afternoon, I master Rashi's reward of 100,000 Chidian coins for the first update. At 7 o'clock in the evening, the third update. Chapter 1029. She's the Prime Minister's wife. Her husband is the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister. How could she do such a thing? Gun Yanji found it very difficult to understand Kai Songyin's train of thought and behavior. Hua Xiaoheng quietly finished reading all the relevant news and returned the phone to Gun Yanji. He comforted her. Don't insist that it was Kai Songyin. At this point we need evidence. Gun Yanji was speechless. Thinking about it carefully, Hua Xiaoheng seemed to be right. She had a preconceived idea. First, she was certain that the blogger's death had something to do with the text she sent to Kai Songyin. Then she was certain that Kai Songyin was the culprit. From a legal point of view, her way of thinking was to first set up her own opinion and then look for evidence around it. It was putting the cart before the horse and would cover up the truth. Hua Xiao, you're very right. We can't prove that Kai Songyin was the one behind it. I don't have any concrete evidence. I only have a logical deduction. Gun Yanji sincerely expressed her admiration for Hua Xiaoheng. His meticulous and rigorous thinking, as well as his impartial attitude towards the case, gave her a lot of inspiration. Hua Xiaoheng remained calm and collected. His expression didn't change much, but the flash of joy in his eyes made his entire aura much more relaxed. Without batting an eyelid, he sat next to Gu Nianji and said, "Then what do you plan to do?" Hua Xiaoheng could tell that Gu Nianji felt apologetic towards the blogger, so she would definitely intervene. His death, in her opinion, was caused by one of her text messages. But Hua Xiaoheng knew that this was the end of the blogger from the moment he accepted Kai Songyin's short story. Even if Kai Songyin didn't make a move now, she would make a move later. She wouldn't leave such a big weakness in the hands of others. Gu Nianji's text about Tan Guerin only sped up the process. Although Hua Xiaoheng had just told Gu Nianji that Kai Songyin might not have ordered someone to do it, he knew deep down that Kai Songyin definitely had something to do with this. It all depended on what role Kai Songyin played in this. Perhaps she was the mastermind, or perhaps she was just an accomplice. Gu Nianji hung her head and said, "I want to see if I can find the real murderer and help this blogger." "He almost ruined your reputation," Hua Xiaoheng said dryly. "Don't you hate him?" "Of course I hate him. Otherwise I wouldn't have used his Weibo account to post videos of the Prime Minister." Gu Nianji pouted. "But I still think he doesn't deserve to die. Kai Songyin attacked this blogger because she was worried about Tan Guerin. I couldn't stand it. She was the wife of the Prime Minister of a country, but she was actually this kind of person who killed people at the slightest provocation. Even if it's for the sake of the people, I still have to try." Hua Xiaoheng looked at her with a smile. Every word she said touched the bottom of his heart. The tacit understanding between the two of them was more than they knew. Hua Xiaoheng kissed her forehead. "Okay, do it if you want to, but be careful." Gu Nianji nodded. She didn't ask for much from Hua Xiaoheng. Because this was a domestic criminal case with Hua Xiaoheng's identity and position, he couldn't interfere. But Gu Nianji also didn't want Hua Xiaoheng to help her all the way so she could reap the benefits of finding evidence of the murderer. As long as he could talk to her behind her back like he did today and help her sort out her thoughts, Gu Nianji was already very satisfied. After she finished talking, Gu Nianji casually asked Hua Xiaoheng, "Aren't you going to the Senate building to oversee things? The vote is next week, right?" Hua Xiaoheng shook his head. "I'll let Big Xiong be in charge of monitoring the interim election. I still have other work." As he spoke, Hua Xiaoheng stood up. "You should rest early." Gu Nianji also stood up to return to her suite across the street. "You should also rest. I see that you're thinner than before." Gu Nianji's gaze fell on Hua Xiaoheng's waist, which was covered in a military belt. His figure had always been impeccable. He had broad shoulders, a narrow waist and long legs. His broad back had a beautiful inverted triangle. Just looking at his back was enough to charm a fangirl. But in Gu Nianji's eyes he didn't seem as sturdy as before. Hua Xiaoheng walked out with her and said with a smile, "When you weren't home I didn't eat or drink, so of course I lost weight." Gu Nianji. The air suddenly became still and the atmosphere suddenly froze. Gu Nianji rubbed her ears and felt a burst of pain. She finally muttered to herself, "I'm not dreaming." Hua Xiaoheng rubbed her head and carefully tied the gauze around her ears. He said gently, "I'm not dreaming. I'm telling the truth." Ever since Gu Nianji returned from a near-death experience and cried to break up with him, he didn't want to tell her how many sleepless nights he had been. As soon as he closed his eyes, it was as if he could see the boundless Alps surrounded by wolves and tigers. The woman he loved the most was running for her life in the mountains, but he could only watch helplessly. His self-blame was indescribable, and his guilt couldn't be vented. In the end he could only tenaciously wait and protect. As a soldier with unparalleled self-control, this was the only thing he could do. Gu Nianji turned around and hugged him. "Now that I'm back you have to eat well and sleep well." Hua Xiaoheng stared at the top of her head for a while and bent down to whisper something in her ear. Gu Nianji blushed and forced herself to calm down. She let go of his muscular waist and turned around to leave without saying a word. Hua Xiaoheng stood at the door with both hands in his trouser pockets. He leisurely watched her open the door across from him, pushed the door open and slammed the door shut. Hua Xiaoheng smiled and left his official residence in a relaxed mood. He returned to the central control room to connect with Zhao Liangzi. Hua Xiaoheng had a vague feeling that there was a problem with the surveillance software regarding Hong Kongquan's tracking chip. This was because the inspection report just now proved that there was no problem with the hardware of the tracking chip. There were only two possibilities. One was that there was a problem with the software, and the other was that there was a problem with the eyes of the two Special Operations Forces personnel. Hua Xiaoheng carefully looked at the video footage taken by the two personnel. He saw very clearly that the man who came out of the neighborhood where Hong Kongquan lived was indeed Hong Kongquan. The video showed that it was Hong Kongquan himself all the way to the gay bar. As for where he went after changing clothes, Hua Xiaoheng could not be sure because the tracking chip did not show the corresponding data. Hua Xiaoheng sat down in the central control room and connected with Zhao Liangzi. This was the time they had agreed on. "Hello, Chief." Zhao Liangzi's handsome face appeared on the computer screen in front of Hua Xiaoheng. They were having an encrypted video call. Hua Xiaoheng nodded. "Little Zay, how are you doing over there?" "How are I doing?" "I'm doing great." Zhao Liangzi was relaxed. "I'm eating fresh seafood. I'm really eating shark fin as a side dish and lobster as the main course. Hua Xiaoheng, I suggest that you and Big Xiong come over when you have time. I'll treat you to crabs until you're full." Hua Xiaoheng smiled. "Since you're having such a good time, you should stay here and treat that place as your home." Zhao Liangzi was speechless. Fine, he admitted that he couldn't win against Hua Xiaoheng in an argument. He shouldn't have boasted just now. Great, now he had to treat this place as his home. Zhao Liangzi's expression was stern as he scanned the 10-square-meter room. To be precise, it wasn't a room but a thatched hut. All the equipment was in the newly built concrete room. Their own residence was still under construction, so everyone's temporary residence was still a thatched hut. Hua Xiaoheng stared with satisfaction at Zhao Liangzi's suddenly dark expression. He said calmly, "I have a problem I want to share with you." As he spoke, he told him about the problem with the Secret Service's tracking chip. Of course, Hua Xiaoheng didn't say whose tracking chip it was. He only said that during a spot check, the chip's data was inconsistent with actual operations. They initially deduced that there was a problem with the monitoring chip's software and asked Zhao Liangzi if there was a way to fix the software bug. Zhao Liangzi was a computer genius and loved to challenge all kinds of software bugs. As soon as he heard that the Secret Service's tracking chip had a problem, he quickly said, "No problem. Hua Xiaoheng, send me the tracking chip's data that went wrong. I'll see if I have any clues." This is the second update. Today is the third update. I'm begging for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Today is Monday, and I'm especially looking for recommendation votes. The first update of 100,000 Qidian coins for the Alliance leader, I am Master Rashi, July has arrived. At 7 p.m. the third update. Chapter 1030. Hua Xiaoheng packaged Hong Kongquan's tracking chip data and sent it to Zhao Liangzi's email. "Can you check the central control system's monitoring software?" Zhao Liangzi tried it on the other side and shook his head. "No, I can't log in." Hua Xiaoheng looked at Zhao Liangzi's authority. He was logging in remotely, and the central control system had very high security requirements for remote login accounts. Zhao Liangzi's base had just been set up, so there wasn't such high security authority yet. He couldn't guarantee security measures after logging in. "I'll package some of the software related to monitoring and send it to you." Hua Xiaoheng didn't hesitate. "It's time to test the security of the quantum communication at the Institute of High Energy Physics of the Chinese Academy of Sciences. Pay attention to receiving it over there." The biggest feature of quantum communication was that it was extremely safe. Even if the non-receiving party intercepted the content of the communication, they wouldn't be able to check it, because the content of the communication would be automatically destroyed the moment it was intercepted by a third party. Zhao Liangzi had many public missions on the island at the Cape of Good Hope in Africa. Remote testing of the quantum communication at the Institute of High Energy Physics was also one of his missions. Of course, his private mission was to find the location of the MH210 plane crash and find Gu Xiangwen's whereabouts. Zhao Liangzi finished adjusting the quantum communication equipment and waited for Hua Xiaoheng to send it. Not long after he received the email. After reading it, everything was normal. "Get to work and send me the results as soon as possible." Hua Xiaoheng looked at his watch. "Tomorrow morning in China. Whether it's a problem with the software or not, you have to send the results to my email." Zhao Liangzi quickly agreed and immediately got to work. To test whether a software's performance was stable, find bugs, and modify it required a lot of alternating calculations and runs. Zhao Liangzi looked at the size of the software. Hundreds of thousands of lines of instructions were displayed in front of him, making him almost cross-eyed. It was almost an impossible task for him to complete so many instructions alone. Zhao Liangzi thought for a moment, then ran the entire program through the program with the software he had made to check for bugs. He tried to find any potentially problematic instructions. He spent more than an hour doing this and narrowed down the problematic instructions to a few thousand, which was already greatly reduced from the previous hundreds of thousands of instructions. However, after carefully studying the thousands of instructions, he felt that it would be impossible to thoroughly study them in one night. A person's energy and time were limited. After some thought, Zhao Liangzi split the thousands of instructions in half. He planned to ask Gu Nianji for help. Logically speaking, Gu Nianji didn't have the appropriate security clearance, so she couldn't view the source code. However, Zhao Liangzi could change these instructions to the most basic data so he could ask Gu Nianji for help. It was impossible to understand the entire software just by looking at the source code fragments, not to mention the buggy source code. Zhao Liangzi was not at all worried that secrets would be leaked. Furthermore, there were precedents for the Special Operations Forces. For example, they had hired outside experts to evaluate the software, or even evaluate operational regulations. Gu Nianji would temporarily be the expert they hired from outside. Zhao Liangzi thought happily as he dialed Gu Nianji's number. Gu Nianji had just showered and was lying in bed scrolling through Weibo on her phone. She thought about how she could get more information from the police's official blog. Gu Nianji was surprised when Zhao Liangzi called. Who is it? Why did he call her so late? She looked at the phone number and saw it was Zhao Liangzi's number. She quickly picked up and smiled. Brother Zhe, you finally remembered to call me. I thought you forgot about me. Nianji, Brother Zhe can forget anyone but you. Zhao Liangzi smiled at her. Turn on the video call. I have something to tell you. Gu Nianji quickly turned on the video call and connected to Zhao Liangzi. On the phone screen, Zhao Liangzi's handsome and fair face had turned a light chocolate color. He looked much stronger and healthier, more like a soldier. Gu Nianji nodded with satisfaction. Brother Zhe, looks like Africa suits you very well. You're even more manly now. Zhao Liangzi chuckled. You make it sound like I wasn't manly before. I deserve it. Gu Nianji smiled but didn't say anything. But Nianji, what happened to your face? And your ears, why are they bandaged? Zhao Liangzi had never seen Gu Nianji look so disheveled. Gu Nianji pointed to her ears angrily. I was bitten by a mad dog. I was just about to sue her. The mad dog she was talking about was Kai Xingnan, who had unexpectedly ripped off her mask. Why did Kai Xingnan rip off her mask? Was it an accident, or was it premeditated? Gu Nianji couldn't figure it out. However, she didn't tell Zhao Liangzi the details. She only said, it's almost done. Don't worry. The two teased each other and finally ended the small talk. Zhao Liangzi got to the point. Nianji, I called you because I want you to do me a favor. Gu Nianji nodded quickly. As long as I can help, tell me. It's like this. I have a software bug that I need to check. My time is limited, but I have to hand in the results tomorrow morning. I want to know if you can help me check part of it. Zhao Liangzi showed Gu Nianji the computer screen full of instructions. Gu Nianji actually liked to check for bugs. When she saw the dense list of instructions, her eyes lit up. It was like someone who liked delicious food seeing delicious food, or someone who liked designer bags seeing an out-of-print designer bag. Her heart instantly raced. Okay. I'll help you check it. Gu Nianji couldn't stop smiling. Tomorrow? Send the data to my email. I'll check it right now. She rolled off the bed and sat down at the desk. She turned on the computer and found the source code file that Zhao Liangzi had sent her in her email. After uncompressing it, Gu Nianji discovered that these instructions were probably only a small part of the original version. Brother Zhe, the source code you sent me is only the tip of the iceberg, right? Gu Nianji said jokingly. If you don't trust me, you don't have to send it to me. I'll delete it in front of you. Zhao Liangzi wanted to lie on the computer screen and do his best to show Gu Nianji his trust and confidence. Nianji, it's not that I don't trust you, but it's too much work to send everything to you. Your email might not even fit. So I did some preparatory work first. These are the problematic instructions that I used my own inspection software to grab. The bug should be in these files. I kept half for myself and sent the other half to you. We'll look through it separately and compile it. Gu Nianji understood what Zhao Liangzi meant and asked, what is this software used for? Data monitoring, Zhao Liangzi said simply. It's connected to the signal sent by the chip and records the chip's location. Gu Nianji understood. Isn't this a GPS signal processor? Haha, more or less, but more specific. Zhao Liangzi happily expressed that he had found the right person. With Gu Nianji's cooperation, they could solve the software problem in one night. After the two divided the work, they immersed themselves in the fiery work of checking for bugs. Gu Nianji had nothing to do anyway. Her face and ears had new injuries, so she needed to rest for a few days to avoid the people outside who were eyeing her with ulterior motives. It was the third update, and today was the third update, asking for monthly votes and recommendation votes. Today was Monday, especially for recommendation votes. Chapter 1031. She had a lot of time and could do what she liked. Gu Nianji focused on her work in front of the computer. Zhao Yangzi had his own bug-checking program, and so did Gu Nianji. Her program was more flexible and could be modified according to different software. A worker must first sharpen his tools to do a good job. Gu Nianji wanted to find the bug more thoroughly, so she first checked her own little program. After confirming that there were no problems, she used her program to run the source code script that Zhao Yangzi had sent her. The computer began to calculate and check automatically. Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief. She looked at the time. It was already 1 in the morning. She got up and walked to the door of the suite. She opened the door and looked at Hu Xiaoheng's room. The light in front of his door was not lit. This meant that he had not returned. It seemed that Hu Xiaoheng had pulled an all-nighter again. Gu Nianji shook her head and rubbed her phone. She finally put it down. She knew that Hu Xiaoheng was busy now. Calling him would only distract him. Gu Nianji closed her door and planned to sleep for a few hours. She set her phone alarm for 6 in the morning. This should be the right time to check the results. Gu Nianji returned to her bedroom and quickly fell asleep. It was a dreamless night and she slept very soundly. At 6 in the morning the next day, her phone alarm began to ring. Gu Nianji wanted to smash her phone. She rolled around in bed for a while before getting up with a frown. She rubbed her eyes and sat in front of the computer to look at her test results. After one night, she discovered that her error-checking program had finished running. The results showed that the source code that Zhao Yangzi had sent her was fine. Gu Nianji breathed a sigh of relief and went to the bathroom to wash her face with cold water to wake herself up. She then took her phone and dialed Zhao Yangzi's number to video call him. "Brother Zhe, did you finish the test?" Gu Nianji asked with a smile. Zhao Yangzi had said yesterday that whether or not she could find anything, there must be results by this morning. Zhao Yangzi was also sleepy on the other side. He mumbled into his Bluetooth headset, "I finished checking. There are no problems." "What about you? Did you find any problems?" Zhao Yangzi actually did not have much hope. That was because the monitoring software had been tested by countless computer experts and polished in practice. After so many years, there had never been a problem. Zhao Yangzi didn't even know why Hu Xiaoheng suddenly wanted to check the software. Of course, he also knew that Hu Xiaoheng had a basis for everything he did. Even if it was a sudden impulse, he should have been able to sense that something was wrong. Zhao Yangzi didn't share any more information or reasons with Gu Nianji, because if he said anything more, it would be a violation of discipline. Gu Nianji made a V sign with her right hand. "Yeah, mine is fine too." Zhao Yangzi was speechless. "Is there really no problem? You didn't slack off last night, did you? Did you sleep last night?" Zhao Yangzi asked bluntly. Gu Nianji quickly waved her hands. No. Although I slept, my program was still running, so I didn't slack off." Zhao Yangzi rubbed his forehead. "So you went to sleep?" His expression changed instantly and he said harshly, "Nianji, you should know what we do for a living. Do you have any sense of time? In the military they worked at whatever time they said they would. They couldn't be like other departments where they said they would have a meeting at 8, but the actual meeting time was at 9. This gave everyone an hour of buffer time to ensure that everyone would be present when the meeting started. If the military said the meeting was at 8, then it was 8. 1 second late would be considered late and they would be punished by military law." Gu Nianji was speechless. "But I didn't delay anything." Gu Nianji defended herself quietly. "Even if I didn't sleep, I was just watching the computer run on the side. Tell me, why would I waste my time sleeping?" Zhao Yangzi was speechless. It sounded very reasonable. Zhao Yangzi was silent for a while, but he didn't know how to refute Gu Nianji. In the end he said, "Fine, what's the situation on your side? Is there really no problem? Do you want to look at your program running records again?" Gu Nianji nodded. "I'm looking." After 10 minutes, Gu Nianji finished looking at all the logs from last night and said to Zhao Yangzi with certainty, "There really is no problem." She then sent the source code and logs she had finished checking. Zhao Yangzi would check it again. After finishing this work, Gu Nianji went downstairs to have some breakfast and spoke with the orderlies for a while. She confirmed that Hu Xiaoheng hadn't come back last night and was still working overtime in the central control room. Gu Nianji quickly asked, "What about supper and breakfast? Did you guys send them over? The orderlies laughed. Of course we did. Our mission is to take care of the chief's health. How could we let the chief go hungry? Gu Nianji nodded with relief and smiled. That's good. With you guys here, we don't have to worry about Huoxiao starving. She said it jokingly, and the orderlies laughed along with her. Gu Nianji finished breakfast in a happy mood and went back to her room to surf the internet. She still had to find out the truth about the blogger's death, and she didn't have much time left. Sitting in front of the computer, Gu Nianji began to wander the internet. If Hua Xiaoheng hadn't forbidden her, she would have wanted to play on the dark web. Zhao Liangzi checked all the source code and confirmed that there were no problems before sending it to Hua Xiaoheng. Within 5 minutes, Hua Xiaoheng's video call followed. Little Zay. Hua Xiao, did you see the file I sent? Zhao Liangzi quickly accepted the video call and communicated with Hua Xiaoheng through his Bluetooth headset. Hua Xiaoheng nodded slightly. I saw it, but I'm not satisfied. Zhao Liangzi was speechless. Because I'm sure that there's a problem with the monitoring software. Hua Xiaoheng said dryly. Or there's a problem with the computer itself. Zhao Liangzi suddenly shivered. As a senior computer expert and a world-class hacker, Zhao Liangzi understood what Hua Xiaoheng meant. Hua Xiao, to be honest, I asked Nianji to help me last night. Of course, I didn't give her all the information. I only followed the methods and procedures our Special Operations Forces uses to find outside experts and assigned her half of the source code to check. Zhao Liangzi had a bitter expression as he confessed to Hua Xiaoheng. So, Hua Xiaoheng tapped the computer table non-committally. She didn't find the problem either? Zhao Liangzi shook his head with difficulty. No. She used her bug-checking program to verify the source code I sent her and was sure that there were no problems. So, Hua Xiao, are you sure that there's a problem with the monitoring software and not with the computer itself? If there was a problem with the computer itself, it would be an even bigger disaster. Because the computer running the monitoring software was one of the supercomputers located in the central control room. And this supercomputer stored almost 30% of the Huaxia Empire's confidential documents. Zhao Liangzi suddenly thought of Gu Nianji using a software called Devourer. EXE in Germany to wipe out all the information from the German Federal Intelligence Agency. If this happened to someone else, they would be happy to watch. But if it happened to him, Zhao Liangzi felt like his guts were about to explode. Hua Xiaoheng weighed the information in Zhao Liangzi's words. If the source code had been checked by Zhao Liangzi and Gu Nianji, two world-class computer experts and expert hackers, and both found no problems, then it really wasn't a problem with the monitoring software, but with the computer itself. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it for a long time. He almost unplugged the supercomputer's power cord. But now was the critical moment of the interim election, and every supercomputer was running at full capacity. Could he bear the consequences of unplugging the power cord at a time like this? Or rather, could the entire Huaxia Empire bear the consequences? His hand moved back and forth on the mouse. Finally, he created a real-time monitoring security program and saved it into the computer. This program wasn't a monitoring software, but it monitored the computer's behavior. Just like Gu Nianji's bug-checking software, it could record all the computer's activities during the bug-checking period and generate a log to facilitate post-inspection. Time passed quickly. Gu Nianji felt like it was noon in the blink of an eye. It was almost time for lunch. She looked at her watch and finally couldn't help but call Hua Xiaoheng. Hua Xiao, are you coming back for lunch? In order to ensure that the supercomputer could properly monitor the interim election, Hua Xiaoheng had to make a trip to the Senate building to see what the computer connection was like. This unexpected discovery made Hua Xiaoheng acutely sense that something was wrong. In both elections, the other party had requested the Special Operations Forces to monitor them. The reason was that it was more fair. Was that really the reason? Hua Xiaoheng's face was dark. He said to Gu Nianji calmly, I have to go out for something. You eat by yourself. He paused, then said, I'll be very busy for the next few days. I won't be going back. He was telling her about his whereabouts. Gu Nianji had mixed feelings. She quietly agreed and couldn't bear to put down the phone. She couldn't help but say, if there's anything you need my help with, just let me know. Hua Xiaoheng thought about it. If there's a need, I'll apply for special permission from General G. Gu Nianji perked up. There's really something you need my help with? Yeah. Hua Xiaoheng opened the door and got into the car. He said, Little Zay told me about what he asked you to investigate. But I still think there's a problem. It's just that we haven't found anything yet. Hua Xiaoheng hung up the phone. He asked Fan Jian to drive to the Senate building. Gu Nianji stared at her phone and thought about what Hua Xiaoheng had just said. She was very unconvinced. Did Hua Xiaoheng say that to question the program she had written? Or was there another reason? Gu Nianji couldn't stand it anymore. She contacted Zhao Liangzi and asked him what was going on. Zhao Liangzi heard that Hua Xiaoheng had already relented and was going to apply for special permission from General Ji to allow Gu Nianji to join, so he told her more information. That's it. Hua Xiao said that either there's a problem with the surveillance software or the computer. Gu Nianji had actually been thinking about the source code that Zhao Liangzi had asked her to investigate from last night until noon. But she had never imagined that this was the reason Hua Xiaoheng had asked them to investigate the bug. Then if it's a problem with the computer, then we're in big trouble. Gu Nianji was restless in her room. Even the reason for the blogger's death was second to her. That's right. I'm worried to death too. Zhao Liangzi pounded the computer table. If I find out which bastard set us up, I'll cut him into pieces. Brother Zhe, mind your manners. Manners? Gu Nianji quickly persuaded him, but she also said, if that day comes, I'll definitely watch from the sidelines and hand you the knife. The two of them laughed. The tension in their hearts was temporarily alleviated. After ending the call with Zhao Liangzi, Gu Nianji returned to the computer and began to re-examine the bug detection program she had written. She had only read a few lines of code when her phone rang again. Gu Nianji took it to see that it was He Zhichu calling. Gu Nianji quickly put on her Bluetooth headset and typed as she spoke to He Zhichu. Hello, Professor He. He Zhichu also put on his Bluetooth headset and put his hands in his trouser pockets. He stood in his apartment and looked at the blue sky and white clouds outside the window. He asked, Nianji, you didn't go to work at the Senate? Gu Nianji grunted. I was injured, so I have to rest. You've been injured again. He Zhichu's voice was very gentle, but there was a trace of impatience and ruthlessness in his tone. It was almost transmitted through the phone's waves. Gu Nianji's hands slowed down and she smiled. You know? He Zhichu actually knew about what had happened at the Senate Secretariat. Gu Nianji thought that for her own safety, He Zhichu would do no less than Hua Xiaoheng. Of course. By the way, I've already sent a lawyer's letter to Kai Xingnan as your representative lawyer. I want her to be held criminally responsible for your personal injury. He then asked Gu Nianji, is your ear wound better? Gu Nianji raised a brow. You contacted Brother Qin? He Zhichu was silent. Although he was a bit reluctant, he still nodded. Yes. I heard from Big Xiong that you came to the base, so I figured Hua Xiaoheng would take you to see a doctor. Chen Lai was the only doctor Hua Xiaoheng and He Zhichu trusted to treat Gu Nianji. Gu Nianji was grateful and happy. Twirling the pen in her hand, her voice became much lighter. But Professor He, I also slapped her. What if she sues me? Nianji, you've only graduated a few days ago and you've already forgotten? He Zhichu snorted. To file a criminal injury case, we need a medical examiner to examine the injury. Your torn ear can be considered a minor injury to file a case. As for the slap, if you ask her to see a medical examiner, I don't think any medical examiner would consider a slap as a criminal injury. At most, she'll file a civil lawsuit. Gu Nianji smiled. Thank you for your advice, Professor He. Without you, I would have been bullied by Kai Xingnan. Don't flatter me. He Zhichu shook his head with a smile. Alright, are you busy today? Let's have dinner together? I haven't seen you in a few days. Gu Nianji looked at her computer and said tactfully, Professor He, I'm busy. With such an interesting computer problem unsolved, Gu Nianji had no appetite to eat or drink. He Zhichu was speechless. Busy with what? Don't tell me it's about the Senate Secretariat. He Zhichu completely disliked the Senate, but because of Gu Nianji's insistence, He Zhichu didn't object to her wanting to go to the Senate. No. Gu Nianji shook her head. It's a computer program. I ran it all night last night and couldn't find any bugs. But someone told me that if it's not a problem with the program, then it's a computer problem. But I just don't understand. A computer problem should be a hardware problem, and a program problem should be a software problem. How can the two be lumped together? He Zhichu was speechless. After a while, he rubbed his forehead and asked nonchalantly, is this important to you? Of course it's important. As a self-proclaimed computer genius, I can't stand that there are things I don't know. Gu Nianji said proudly and slammed the keyboard. He Zhichu was amused by her childish behavior and said, what kind of program is it that you're so worried about? Can you let me see it? Professor He, do you know about it too? Of course, Gu Nianji wouldn't send it to He Zhichu because this was a mission from the Special Operations Forces. He Zhichu couldn't touch it. You're looking down on me? Hijichu raised his eyebrows and sat down against the windowsill. He said dryly, "Fine, you don't have to send me the program. Just tell me what kind of problem it is. Maybe I can help you find the right way to solve it." "Is that so?" Gu Nianji tilted her head and thought about it. She reorganized her words and explained the software's problems and contradictions to Hijichu. Hijichu listened quietly and thought it was as he expected. This chapter had 4,700 words and 2 chapters in one, including the monthly votes of 2,100 plus chapters. Let me remind you of your monthly votes and recommendation votes. 7 o'clock at night. P.S. Thank you to this space lazy pig for the 10,000 Chidian coins the day before yesterday. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.